satisfaction. Then he walked to Jun Luyang worriedly. This moment, he felt like a child of a big family. None of them are worry-free. Looked at Jun Luyang. After the language in the mind was organized several times. In the end, I chose a section that was not so embarrassing. Said that very seriously. It won't be possible between us. Let's really be friends. Chengcheng heard the words. Jun Luyang frowned. I just wanted to retort something. Yuan Chu saw this. He spoke first. After all, it was his situation. How is it possible to get married? Accidentally took Yi Qinyuan into the ditch. That's enough frustration. Jun Luyang sighed. He must pinch off the signs in time. Don't say anything. I'm a pit. If you don't believe me, go and ask your prophet. I also understand why you like me. After all, I'm as smart and cute as I am. Kind and witty. There are not many people who are brave and fearless. It's normal for you to like me. But those are appearances. I'm still very bad by nature. So you'd better get lost. Jun Luyang listened to him. Although very angry, very unwilling, but I still couldn't help laughing. How can this little thing be so funny? Seeing Jun Luyang smiled. Yuan Chu also smiled. Right, right. Someone as good as me. It's better to be friends. That way, I don't have to worry about being snatched away. That's right. Yuan Chu stretched out his hand. Make a fist. The little one said that I was so personable. A friend with clear eyebrows. What else do you want? From it, Jun Luyang looked at Yuan Chu. It's kind of completely out of temper. He suddenly understood. Why is Yi Qinyuan, who is obviously very indifferent at first glance, would listen to him like that? Because he has the magic to convince others. Make others happy. Therefore, Jun Luyang hesitated for a moment. Finally reached out. 2 fists, one large and one small, are in the air. Touched it lightly. Friends is a new word. After Yuan Chu and Jun Luyang bumped fists, the atmosphere on the field that was originally seen by Zhang Bahu, it was easy to get started. Yuan Chu saw this. Immediately, I was relieved. Forthwith, he told Jun Luyang the news that the magic eye was going to have an accident, in order to make it believe, and specifically said that this is what the Devil Mother asked me to tell you. Jun Luyang was stunned when he heard this. His expression suddenly became serious. How could something happen to the magic eye? In the distance, he held his small chin and said seriously, the Witch Mother didn't tell me much about the specifics. That is, there is not much blood in the blood pool. It will probably be completely exhausted in a few decades. Let you send someone out to collect the corpse if you have nothing to do all these years. Take their blood away. As for the quantity, Yuan Chu pretended to stretch out his fingers. After some calculation, speaking of the blood of 1 million people from the spirit world and the demon world each. That's about it. Once there is a problem with the blood pool, you pour out the blood you have collected into it. Remember, this is very important. Yuan Chu finished speaking, looked up at Jun Luyang. Hopefully he'll listen, although the process is a bit tedious. But it's also for his own good. After all, I don't have any deep grudges against him. If you can help. Jun Luyang looked at Yuan Chu's serious little expression. Then he nodded. He still trusts Yuan Chu very much. Okay, I got it. Start today. I'll send someone to collect it. Listen to Jun Luyang say this. Yuan Chu was relieved. All the hidden dangers are solved. Then he turned his head and looked at the people who were still excited. Smile slightly, then I'll go first. I'll tell you the truth. There's a lot of big stuff out there waiting for me to solve. So I won't stay long. Yuan Chu finished speaking. Turn around and leave. However, Jun Luyang suddenly grabbed him. At the same time, an enchantment immediately appeared between the two. Instantaneous. Will detect that something is wrong. Yi Qinyuan, who wanted to make a move, was blocked. Yi Qinyuan saw this. A flash of red flashed in his eyes. His eyes were staring at Jun Luyang. If he does something out of the ordinary, even if there is a master who stops himself, make him look good too. Lu Yang, the king of the festival, looked at Yuan Chu. Countless complicated emotions flashed through his eyes. But they are all covered up one by one. Whispered a small poke. Remember that no matter what happens, whoever bullied you, you can come to me. I will always have your place by my side. Jun Luyang finished speaking. The next second, the barrier shattered. The purple shards fell like snowflakes. Yuan Chu was stunned and looked at the black dress in front of him. Jun Luyang with a purple wand in his hand. It's like a proud and invincible king. But at this moment, he seemed to see the sorrow and reluctance in his eyes, even if he was smiling. When Yuan Chu hadn't reacted yet, Jun Luyang put his fingers to his lips and kissed it, then gently applied it to Yuan Chu's forehead. A red light was fleeting. Quickly sink into it. In the second year of junior high school, I left a mark on you. If Yi Chen Yuan recovers you in the future, I'll help you teach him a lesson. In Jun Luyang's fingers, the moment he left Yuan Chu's forehead, Yi Chen Yuan hurriedly stepped forward and pulled Yuan Chu to his side. The look on that face can only be described as terrifying. Yuan Chu, who reacted, saw the little apprentice's face, momentarily surprised. In order to avoid a fight at such a moment, hurriedly pulled Yi Chen Yuan and ran. Let's all live a good life. I'll come and play when I have time. After saying that, the figures of the two disappeared below. In the eyes of the crowd, Jun Luyang looked at the back of Yuan Chu's disappearance. Thinking of the indirect kiss just now, I couldn't help but chuckle. Treat him well. Yi Chen Yuan, otherwise, I would definitely snatch him. The Demon King and Queen below. See Yuan Chu. I couldn't help but look at each other when I left. But seeing his son look not very happy, he didn't say much. Yuan Chu dragged Yi Chen Yuan's aegis for thousands of miles, before I dared to stop slowly. But the hand is still tight. I was afraid that as soon as I let go of Yi Chen Yuan, I would kill him back. Raise your little head. Cautiously looked at Yi Chen Yuan's face. Seeing that Yi Chen Yuan seemed to calm down a little, only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Then he quietly let go of Yi Chen Yuan's hand. However, Yuan Chu's hand had just let go. Yi Chen Yuan immediately turned around. The murderous one wants to go back to Jun Luyang to settle accounts. This made Yuan Chu suddenly frightened. Hurriedly hugged Yi Chen Yuan's waist and let go. Looked at the murderous Yi Chen Yuan. In the distance was a headache, but still patiently persuade Xiao Yuan to think twice. The demon realm is people's territory. You're going to lose a lot by going it alone. But Yi Chen Yuan was not afraid at all, not to mention the thousands of troops. Even if the demon realm ancestor stood in front of him to protect Jun Luyang, he still won't let it go. He gritted his teeth and said, "But he kissed you." I have to say, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Once you get jealous, that's pretty scary, especially the kind that is still strong. When Yin was stunned for a moment, then his hands tightened. After all, Xiao Yuan, who was in a state of jealousy, did not stop it. God knows what's going to come out. I don't care with my eyes closed. I don't really have anything to do with him. You have to be reasonable. The original pale words. It didn't make much difference. Yi Chen Yuan's face was still ugly. Awkwardly, but I still feel very uncomfortable. He kisses you on the forehead. Yuan Chu heard Yi Chen Yuan say this. What else can I do? An apprentice of your choice. Tears have to be coaxed. Then he turned Yi Chen Yuan to face him, and then in front of him, reached out and wiped his forehead vigorously. After that, Yuan Chu looked at Yi Chen Yuan with a smile. I've wiped it clean. Seeing that the master flattered himself so much, Yi Chen Yuan's anger also disappeared by half. But then he frowned slightly, deliberately said that this will not be clean. Yuan Chu was puzzled when he heard this, subconsciously asked how to wipe it. However, after asking, Yuan Chu regretted it. Suddenly I felt as if I had been tricked. As soon as he raised his eyes, he saw Yi Qinyuan staring at him faintly. That look made Yuan Chu instantly wary. Yi Qinyuan stepped forward with a smile and said to the master, "You remember. How did you cover my mother's kiss in the first place? I want to cover his kiss like that, too. Do you promise?" Yuan Chu remembered the stupid things he did when he was young and ignorant. Suddenly, the skin and flesh tightened. Especially, saw Yi Qinyuan's wolf-like appearance. He was even more ashamed to jump 3 feet away. Looked at Yi Qinyuan with a sad face. "My motives were different from yours now. I wanted you to be less sad." Demon beasts, there is a day and night. An apprentice who wants to eat and wipe himself clean. What to do? It's a rush to wait online. Facing Yuan Chu's accusatory eyes, Yi Qinyuan was unmoved. Take a few steps forward and grab Yuan Chu. The expression on his face became faster than turning the pages of a book. Said with a look of grievance, "But if you don't agree, I'm sad right now." Because Yi Qinyuan did not shield the Zi. At this time, there are 3 people eating melons in the Zi. Watch this scene with relish. The little white dragon roared excitedly. "I'm betting on a shortbread for the first time. My mother will definitely compromise." Excalibur is also on the side. Shouted excitedly, and took him down directly. Take him and look at the excited 2 goods in front of him. Fortunately, he is quite sensible. "First of all, I complained about it. Is it really good for you to be like this?" Then a bucket of cold water was poured down. Their affairs have not yet been listed by the 10,000 Swords sect. If Xiaozhen did something, the old ancestor of the 10,000 Swords sect would have broken his legs. When Yin is a dragon and a dragon, hurriedly expressed his position. There they are. No one wants to stop them from being together. If it's a big deal, take them to elope. Li Lao looked at the 2 goods in front of him. I didn't know what to say for a while. This group of bad things that don't think it's a big deal to watch the excitement. O Tianju outside looked at Yi Qinyuan, who was close at hand in front of him. Yuan Chu's expression was entangled. It's crazy. This rebel is becoming more and more disobedient. Then I want to make a final resistance. No, I'm your master. You have to listen to me. Yuan Chu's last rebellion. It's like a pebble falling into the sea. Didn't stir up any waves. Yi Qinyuan immediately took the beginning of the yuan. Gently hugged into his arms. If I didn't listen to you, I've done that now. And not asking for consent. Yuan Chu stretched out his paw to cover his forehead with a headache. Hurriedly said, "There are so many people waiting for you outside. Can we get down to business first?" Yi Qinyuan smiled slightly. "You're the only thing I'm doing." After speaking, reach out and remove the 2 hands that were originally covering your forehead. He bowed his head and kissed him. Although it was only to stamp off the mark at first. But a kiss goes up. Yi Qinyuan couldn't restrain himself. After being eaten tofu again, Yuan Chu took out the Tianfang porridge. Be prepared to ignore this rebel. A few minutes Yi Qinyuan knew. I did go a little too far before. Take a plate of dim sum and put it in front of Yuan Chu. Whispered to the master. Don't get angry, okay? I promise not to do that next time. Yuan Chu looked at the delicate dim sum in front of him. At this time, he was huffing and puffing, and he couldn't arouse any interest. Although very angry, but Yuan Chu didn't know it in his heart. In the end, it is in the air leaf Qinyuan. Still angry with yourself? And for Yi Qinyuan's guarantee. Yuan Chu said that he didn't believe a word. Do you think I'm going to believe you? You rebel. You don't have any credibility with me anymore. Looked at the little face of the ancient city bun in the distance. And that pouting mouth. Yi Qinyuan almost couldn't hold back again. After all, he has no self-control over him at all. But now the daughter-in-law is still angry. Yi Qinyuan pursued the crematorium in order not to pursue it in the future. Quietly swallowed a jingdan. Then he stepped forward and coaxed him. The voice is also more gentle. Master, don't be angry. I'm hungry. I'll make you a cloud goose custard, okay? After Yi Qinyuan finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the kitchen. The thought of him soon had enough status. Go to the 10,000 Swords sect to propose marriage. The look on his face couldn't help but be a little expectant. The movements are also more brisk to prepare food for Yuan Chu. Yuan Chu looked at the back of Yi Qinyuan leaving. There was a lot of complexity in his eyes. What to do? Xiao Yuanyu and seems to be sinking deeper and deeper. If then I leave suddenly, he won't be able to bear it. If I hadn't gone back to save my father, I can stay here with Yuanyuan until the end. The cylinder is now very tangled. The whole person lay on the table in mourning. After all, it's not a good situation right now. Xiao Yuanyuan looked at her eyes. Let her have a kind. The feeling of drowning in it every minute. If only she had become bad and willful now. Is Xiao Yuanyuan still saved? Yuan Chu then suddenly thought of something. A bead was taken out of his bosom. This bead. It was the demon mother before she entered the abyss of the gods. To yourself. Said that with herself, she could get close to Su Jing. Although this thing is according to their own and Mom's deal. It is to get the heart of the gods. Mom will give it to himself. But he hadn't gone to the abyss of the gods yet. Mom had already given it to him, as if he was sure he would succeed. Look at the round beads on your hands. Zhu irritably placed it on the table and rolled it around. That little brain that doesn't like to think. At this time, I wondered if there was a way to do both. However, the head of the thought is big. Don't talk about the way. Not even a thought. Yuan Chu then sighed old-fashionedly. Hold the bead tightly in your hand. After deciding to get silenced. I've always been with the little grievances. I didn't go back until a second before I died. It should be the best of both worlds. After figuring it out, Yuan Chu suddenly relaxed a lot. I can't help but be narcissistic. Hee, it's me. Then he turned his head to look at the gentle movements in the kitchen. Yi Qinyuan, who skillfully helped him prepare food. The last life comes to mind. Yi Qinyuan's cold attitude towards himself. I can't help but sigh with emotion about the small injustices in this life. Keep up with him in the previous life. It's a big difference. In his previous life, Yuan Chu secretly followed Yi Qinyuan, with the aura of the other party's male protagonist. Finally succeeded in entering the temple of pure purity. Look at the treasures all over the place. Yuan Chu didn't care at all. The only thing I want in my heart is to be pure. However, when Yuan Chu just found Su Jing, Yi Qinyuan then also appeared in front of Yuan Chu. The end result is clear. After 300 rounds of fighting, Yuan Chu finally watched the silence. Fell into the hands of Yi Qinyuan. This made Yuan Chu so angry at that time. Look at that expressionless ice cube face. Hey, I said that those who see it have a share. I can give you everything else. Can't you just leave something for me? This silence is really important to me. Just give him to me. I promise never to pester you again. Yuan Chu's words made Yi Qinyuan, who was about to leave, suddenly stop. Turned to look at Yuan Chu. He was also holding a small mirror that he had just gotten his hands on. Why this stuff is of any use to you? When the silence reappeared, when Yuan Chu was in sight, Yuan Chu's eyes almost never left the mirror. And seeing that the members of Yi didn't leave, Yuan Chu suddenly felt that there was a play. Then the chips were raised. This thing will definitely not be useful to you. But for me, it's a lifesaver. So be it, if you're willing to give it to me. I can give you anything. My artifact is also for you. Yuan Chu's words. Let Yi Qinyuan, who was originally cut off from 7 emotions and 6 desires. A gleam flashed in his eyes. The heart that was originally as hard as iron. At this time, I felt a little uncomfortable. Squinted. Said firmly that it seemed that he could get this thing. You don't have to live. Yuan Chu didn't expect this guy to be so keen. It was so easy to see through his thoughts. Touched the back of his head in embarrassment. Isn't that what you want? I won't bother you anymore. And don't underestimate me. I'm quite wealthy. guaranteed to have what you want. After Yuan Shu finished speaking, I feel that the artifact is exchanged for the artifact. Yi Chen Yuan will definitely change it. After all, this is the most famous artifact on the list. To exchange for the little-known one in the other party's hand. As long as it's a normal person, you'll agree. However, what Yuan Shu didn't expect was this. Yi Chen Yuan then sneered, received the silence into the space. Then he left a non-changeable sentence indifferently. Turn around and leave. Yuan Shu was immediately stunned when he saw this. After a second's pause, then he stepped forward quickly and stopped him. Eagerly said that I meant it. You don't have to say it. What do you want? I'll find you all on the Knife Mountain and down the Sea of Fire. Listen to what Yuan Shu said. Yi Chen Yuan responded coldly. I don't need anything. Go away, having said that. However, Yi Chen Yuan's eyes. But he looked Yuan Shu up and down, especially in an important position. There was a slight pause, and this moment of pause was too fast. Yuan Shu didn't notice it at all. Otherwise, he would have been quiet. Absolutely would say, or I'll stay with you for the night. After all, the Spring Festival is worth 1,000 gold. Seeing that what you want most has appeared, where can I endure it at the beginning of the Yuan dynasty? Forcibly suppressed all kinds of dissatisfaction with Yi Chen Yuan. The dead skin leaned up on his face. Crackling said a lot. The disadvantages of not trading with yourself. After enumerating them one by one, then put his hands on his hips. A look of imperativeness said in short, I mean, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to wrap around you harder than I used to. I want you to eat and sleep well every day. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was me. I do what I say. Annoyance will annoy you to death. However, at the beginning of the Yuan, he felt the weight of his threat. Enough time, where he didn't see it. The corners of Yi Chen Yuan's mouth curled imperceptibly. But then he said coldly, nothing to do. Either traitor or theft. The more attentive you are, the more ghosts there are. There is definitely something else to this mirror. I won't be fooled. What you do is your business. As long as you can beat me, it's up to you. I don't eat, nor sleeping. After Yi Chen Yuan finished speaking, he walked directly around the cylinder and walked out. The cylinder of qi jumped behind him, scolding. The scolding is hard to hear. Yi Chen Yuan, you wait for me. If you don't give me silence, I'll ruin all your future chances. Grab the light and burn it all. I'm serious. On the other side, Elderly looked at Yi Chen Yuan, somewhat puzzled. Xiao Yuan's role as a mirror is quite special, but you don't need it either. He's willing to trade you for an artifact with a pact. Why don't you change? Yi Chen Yuan did not reply, remembering the legacy he received when he was silenced. His eyes were even colder. The voice told him, silence has the power to control space and time, and only use once. Just now he said he was going to save people. It can be seen that he is going to the point of time or space. Not in this world. Plus, he's willing to trade everything for it. It was enough to see that he had no intention of coming back. Thinking of this, Yi Chen Yuan didn't know why. That calm and waveless heart. I felt a sense of unhappiness inexplicably. Then, suddenly, two concerned voices sounded in my ears. Let Yuan Shu, who fell into memories, come back to his senses suddenly. Turning his head to look, I only saw this life. Yi Chen Yuan, who was trained by him to be a good family man, walked over with his favorite cloud goose egg. Looking at the fate that came back to his senses, Yi Chen Yuan smiled and said with a smile, Why are you in a daze again? Every time Yuan Shu was in a daze. That serious, cute little expression. Let Yi Chen Yuan want to tease him every time he sees it. Then put the cloud goose egg in front of Yuan Shu. Yuan Shu looked at the fragrant cloud goose eggs in front of him. Pick up a spoon and put it in your mouth. The delicious taste that comes from the tip of the tongue. Yuan Shu suddenly showed a satisfied look. Those big eyes narrowed unconsciously. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. It's still good for Xiao Yuanyuan in this life. He will also make cloud goose eggs for him. Thinking of the last battle before the death of the previous life. I haven't fought with Xiao Yuanyuan a few times yet. He died of inexplicable weakness of his soul. I don't know when Obuchi saw my corpse. What kind of expression will it be? Do you feel that you are already super god? Since then, it has swelled. Yuan Chu thought about it. Again into God. The spoon is placed in the mouth. Began to gnaw unconsciously. Seeing that Yuan Chu was in a daze again. This made Yi Chen Yuan a little curious. He's in this little head. What exactly is the secret he doesn't know? Even his favorite food is not appealing. But when I saw Yuan Chu's appearance, Yi Chen Yuan then couldn't help but stretch out his hand. Pinched Yuan Chu. It was as tender as an egg. The slippery little face smiled indulgently. What was the master thinking? Yuan Chu, who was immersed in his own thoughts again. I felt the sudden pain in my little face. Instantly screamed in pain. Slapped away Yi Chen Yuan's sinful hand. Cover yourself where you were pinched. His eyes were full of accusations. Sundara said, Don't think you've made something delicious. I will forgive you for your previous misdeeds. I'm still going to get angry after eating. Yuan Chu said. Then he picked up the spoon and scooped up another spoonful of cloud goose eggs. Whimper, put it in your mouth. A delicious taste that stretches from the tip of the tongue to the heart. Yuan Chu couldn't help but squint his eyes again. It's so delicious. At the time of eating, though, the beads are still a little guilty. After all, Danins are so cute. But the movements of the hands did not stop. Spoonful after spoonful into the mouth. Not for a while. Whole cloud goose eggs. All that's left is a slick eggshell. Let's add some spicy food after deciding. At the beginning of the Yuan dynasty, he was distracted. When enjoying a meal, Yi Chen Yuan sat on the side and looked at him dotingly. In order not to let too many people disturb his alone time with his master. He had already let the people of the empire go early. Just catch up when you finally reach the empire. He can accompany him well all the way. In the evening, although Yuan Chu felt that he was still angry, but in the end, it still can't compare to Yi Chen Yuan's black belly. He slept in his arms again. Yi Chen Yuan, who deceived his little daughter-in-law into his arms. I was very satisfied. Not for a while. Fell asleep with Yuan Chu. Yi Chen Yuan is usually at night. Basically, they don't sleep. Usually they are meditating. But there was a time when Yuan Chu was in his arms. Yi Chen Yuan will still sleep. Because every time there is a sweet dream. But there is tonight. It's a little different. Although there is also Yuan Chu in tonight's dream. But at this moment, he was hit by a fierce bombardment. Seeing this scene, Yi Chen Yuan was instantly angry. Hurriedly wanted to step forward to help block this attack. At the same time, he roared inwardly. Who injured the master? Not even in a dream. However, even if Yi Chen Yuan was anxious in his heart, I can't move a step forward. That's when he found out. I was bound by an invisible force. You can only be a spectator. With the blast of spiritual power, a large crater was created in the ground in an instant. Yi Chen Yuan then saw a blue figure, slowly falling. I don't know why. He always felt that this figure was very familiar. When you see the man's face, Yi Chen Yuan was shocked to find that the person turned out to be himself. Though, in the dream, I was already an adult. But Yi Chen Yuan will definitely not admit his mistake. What's more, there is a lily guy floating next to him. Look at the motionless figure in the pit. Yi Chen Yuan in the dream felt a little strange. But the boss reminded him to be careful of deception. Facing the worries of Li Lao, Yi Chen Yuan was not worried. But after seeing that the other party did not move for a long time, I also felt that something was wrong. Then he stretched out his finger and pressed it on the lifeline in its place. However, the result made Yi Chen Yuan's face change suddenly. He died and heard the rumors. Elderly was a little shocked. Unbelievable. You beat me to death. It can't be. It's only a few tricks. This little girl the other day. Can't I fight with you for 3 days and 3 nights? Listen to what elderly said. Yi Qinyuan felt that it might be a trick played by the other party. However, after bending down and examining it carefully, Yi Qinyuan found that the other party had disappeared. He who dies cannot die anymore. His primordial god died without escaping. Although Yi Qinyuan's tone was normal when he spoke, it's no different. But Li Lao felt a hint of trilling. The sound was so tense that it trembled. Then he sighed. It may be that he has cultivated some kind of magic skill. Let's go crazy and die. Either that, the sequelae of teleporting Xiezhou broke out. Yi Qinyuan didn't speak. Fortunately, Li Lao has long been used to it. I was talking to myself. Speaking of which, I think he's quite pitiful. After you have been silenced, wrap around you so tightly every day. It shows how important that thing is to him. And at the beginning, in order to get quiet, I don't hesitate to put a teleportation spell on you. Dad is a forbidden spell that will greatly deplete lifespan. If you want me to say that he has sacrificed so much for this, you should have swapped him then. While Li Lao was still chattering, Yi Qinyuan suddenly replied with a cold face. Even if the sequelae of the forbidden spell erupts, he's not going to die right now. After speaking, he continued to check the original body. And when Yi Qinyuan still didn't accept his fate, the little white dragon then appeared behind him, said coldly, "People are dead. Just burn it. Aren't we going to the infernal ghost realm again? Let's go." Who knew that Yi Qinyuan then directly hugged the place? Under the incomprehensible gaze of the old force, Yi Qinyuan directly said that I want to resurrect him. He'd heard about it. Someone in the 10,000 Swords sect has successfully resurrected a person. Therefore, I will resurrect him. Yi Qinyuan said, and then walked towards a cave. Li Lao and Xiao Bailong then chased after him, looked at Yi Qinyuan's serious look. Elderly frowned. Although there is some confusion, but it was impossible to stop the Tao by still opening his mouth. The example of the 10,000 Sword sect was just an accident. The man was dead, but the soul is not gone. And resurrecting a person is not without a price. This little girl can really make you do that for him. Besides, his soul was gone. You can't resurrect him. Compared with the bitter persuasion of Li Lao, the little white dragon is a little more direct. Elderly was right. He's just an empty shell now. But the mana is still there. Master, you some time ago, didn't you get a puppet refining method? Just enough to make it into a puppet. Master, you'll also get a late-stage distraction. Fortunately, Yuan Chu didn't see this scene. Otherwise, you have to anger the current little white dragon. It's not that the good dead are greater. There is no deep hatred. Is that the right thing for you? No matter how Li Lao and Xiao Bailong persuade him, Yi Qinyuan just quietly looked at the corpse of Yuan Chu in front of him. The thoughts in my heart have not wavered in the slightest. His eyes were cold and firm. After a long time, he slowly said that I want to resurrect him. Because he died, I'm sure I'm dead too. He was the only evidence that he was still alive. Look at the scene in the dream. Although nothing is impressed, but Yi Qinyuan felt that it was really happening. An unspeakable pain is creeping in. The next second, Yi Qinyuan, who was covered in cold sweat, suddenly woke up from his dream. However, when he wanted to recall the episode of the dream, but I couldn't think of anything. But that's it. The uneasiness in Yi Qinyuan's heart did not subside at all. Especially when you see the help around you. All of a sudden, it becomes even more intense. I'm afraid that the other party will be in the next second, and disappear into their own world. Then he stretched out his hand and put Yuan Chu, who was sleeping soundly. Embrace yourself in your arms. I want to take this opportunity to alleviate it. The suffocating uneasiness in my heart. This woke up Yuan Chu, who had been sleeping soundly, to be harassed. Looked at the little apprentice in front of him, who didn't know which tendon was wrong. Breathlessly, I don't sleep at night. Are you going to rebel? Hear voices in the distance. Yi Qinyuan was slightly relieved. Looked at the sleepy-eyed master in his arms. He never had before. Disturb his rest. But now he's so scared that he won't speak. Then he pitifully begged for comfort. I had a nightmare. Yuan Chu listened. Perfunctorio. He has also been having frequent nightmares lately. In his dream, the rebel threw himself down. It hurt him every time he got up. You have to check if your innocence is still there. But because I'm too sleepy, Yuan Chu's eyelids that had just opened immediately sank again. However, seeing that Yi Qinyuan had no intention of letting go of himself, Yuan Chu had no choice. To be able to sleep well, forced to endure sleepiness, stretched out his hand and gently patted Yi Qinyuan's back. Don't be afraid to yell. I'll protect you. Yi Qinyuan looked at Yuan Chu's posture of coaxing children. I couldn't help but laugh. Then I wanted to tease him, said the master in a child's tone. Still scared what to do. I always feel like I'm going to be taken away by ghosts. Don't dare to sleep. Yi Qinyuan said. Hugged Yuan Chu's waist. Hugged him a little tighter. Yuan Chu's body was warm. It's like a small stove. Let Yi Qinyuan's heart hang high now. Little by little, I put it down. Yuan Chu was already sleepy at this time, but I heard Yi Qinyuan say this. Stretched out his hand to hug Yi Qinyuan. Muttered, there's a monster coming. You're going to eat me first. Go to sleep. Yi Qinyuan saw this. I couldn't help but laugh. Looked at Yuan Chu's little face that was close at hand. And that confused look is not cute. This made Yi Qinyuan's heart itch. But looking at Yuan Chu, who was sleepy, still restrained. After all, the master himself is slower than the average person. Besides, it's still time to grow your body at night. When Yuan Chu was dazed and was about to fall asleep again, suddenly, I heard Yi Qinyuan ask Master, will you leave me? At the beginning of the Yuan, this will be like falling clouds. I didn't even have the heart to answer. Then he listened to Yi Qinyuan in his ear. Go on. Yi Qinyuan's voice was very soft. The hot breath blew on Yuan Chu's earlobe. It's a little itchy. Master, I won't let you leave me. Even if you want it. I will never allow it. Because without you, I'm going to die. Listen intermittently to the piece that is down. The brain groggily thought. How could he have died without him? There was no him in the previous life. He doesn't live well. Well, something went wrong with his logic. And Yi Qinyuan finished speaking. He lowered his head and kissed his forehead. Much more relieved, he closed his eyes again and fell asleep. However, good times always pass quickly. A few days later, the empire was already close at hand. Although Yi Qinyuan is sure of regaining his identity, but I'm also afraid that the other dog's dog will jump off the wall in a hurry. He himself is naturally fearless, but I'm afraid that the master will be hurt. So before going to join the Imperials, Yi Qinyuan first placed the cylinder in the heavenly pillar. I'm going to meet those people later, master. It's good for you to wait for me in the pillar. Yuan Chu also knew that he couldn't be capricious at this time. Nodded obediently. This separation was not long, but Yi Qinyuan's preparation was sufficient. Then the storage ring was taken out of his arms. Master, I prepared a lot of food in this high-end ring. It's still hot when you take it out. I can't get in during the day. You eat by yourself. Yi Qinyuan then paused. Go on. No more busy, though. I'll come in with you in the evening. Yi Qinyuan's move. If only before he confessed. In the eyes of Yuan Chu, it is still very normal. But for now, Yuan Chu's little face suddenly turned red. His eyes dodged, and he didn't dare to look at Yi Qinyuan. Hurriedly urged, I know. Go ahead and get busy. Yi Qinyuan looked at Yuan Chu's shy little appearance. I was cute in an instant. Before going out, though, a small request was made. The master let the kiss one. It's a good thing to say. Yuan Chu immediately clasped his hands on his chest and retreated repeatedly. We must not allow this rebel to succeed. Although they are not here now, But Yuan Chu understood that they must be secretly peeping at the screen. Then he urged him again not to. Get out of here. Otherwise, I'll call someone. Yi Qinyuan looked at it and suddenly opened his mind. Yuan Chu, who was particularly shy, and no longer embarrass him. Then he dismissed this idea, stretched out his hand and rubbed Yuan Chu's little head. A little helplessly said, "Okay. I don't kiss anymore. Master, you are obedient in the Zi. You can call me anytime. If you're bored, let the little white dragon play with you." Looked at the little apprentice of the mother-in-law and mother in front of him. Yuan Chu pouted and snorted and understood. Got it, yes. It's so long-winded. Yi Qinyuan saw this. Then he got up and prepared to go out. Okay, I'll get out. Before going out, though, Yi Qinyuan turned his head and smiled at the soul in the distance. I'll miss you. After saying that, he dodged and went out. Seeing that this rebel was leaving, he had to tease himself far away, covering his little hot face, standing still and stomping his feet angrily. But the abominable rebel provoked him again. And this will be a shy help. I didn't notice a small figure behind me. The little white dragon hid in the dark and thought secretly. The big devil is still very good at applying what he has learned. Tell him to show more of his heart if he is fine. Don't hide what you're thinking. Be brave enough to speak up. I didn't expect him to do a good job. Yi Qinyuan was after going out. I thought of the original shyness. I can't stop sweetening my heart. You can think of the people who will have to deal with it later. The expression on his face instantly turned cold again. Those in the Empire must be dealt with quickly. In this way, he can go to the 10,000 Sword sect to propose marriage. I didn't know that the master knew that he was going to marry her. What kind of expression will it be? And at this time, all the people in the Empire were on the same ship. The Empire is about to arrive. The crowd gathered in the largest cabin to deliberate. Sitting on guard of the Pin Pavilion elder. Look at the people below who have their own hearts. I stroked my beard. I know. Many of you have been co-opted by Yi Tianxiu, promised to support his succession. But now, we have found the true eldest grandson of the emperor. Let's take it away from everyone's previous thoughts. As soon as this statement came out, most of the people below have an opinion. One of them immediately got up, retorted, although the Excalibur had already recognized Yi Qinyuan as the master. But the emperor's eldest grandson is not necessarily fake. Maybe Yi Qinyuan is the illegitimate son of the prince. After all, the crown prince has been missing for many years. Who said it clearly? His words were recognized by many people, mainly for so many years. Many of them were agitated by the empress. Stand on Yi Tianxiu's side. Besides, if Yi Tianxiu is exposed, it is fake. That's what they've done before. Isn't it just a bamboo basket to draw water? Listen to the discussion below. Yiping Galao, who had just spoken, raised his eyes. It doesn't matter if Yi Qinyuan is the emperor's eldest grandson or an illegitimate child. Now Excalibur worships him as his master. This status is never passed on to others. Although the words of the elder made some people feel reasonable, I couldn't help but fall silent. But some people still want to struggle a little more. Not necessarily if they are two brothers and have a good relationship. Whoever ascends to the throne is not always the same. As long as Yi Qinyuan is a person from the empire, then even if he does not succeed to the throne, it will also become a symbol of empire. This remark, I can't help but make the people present feel quite reasonable. They all nodded in agreement. Even the elder of the pavilion is the same. But the dean on the side couldn't listen to it. Snorted coldly. Then he sneered and said something. The illegitimate son of the emperor's eldest grandson. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has only one child. There will definitely not be a second. Dean, this is a bit of a tough word. Immediately aroused. Many people's dissatisfaction began to crusade against the dean. The dean meant that his Royal Highness in the palace was fake. You can't just because Yi Qinyuan is your student. Just sow favoritism to him. At this time when the atmosphere is scorching, a clear laugh came from outside. Yi Qinyuan heard their innocent words from afar. Can't help but feel some sympathy. The next second, it appeared in the cabin. You don't have to argue again. When you arrive at the palace, everyone will naturally know. It's just that Yi Tianxu wants to harm me. There must be only one left between us. At the moment when Yi Qinyuan appeared, everyone stopped talking, and not just because of who he is, more because of Excalibur. But when I heard Yi Qinyuan's words, some people just want to say something. I only heard Yi Qinyuan continue to laugh. And he only has one outcome, death. Yi Qinyuan finished speaking. The murderous aura that came out of his body. It scared those people. The expressions of the people were different. No one dared to refute it for half a ring. Within the empire, the news that Yi Qinyuan got the divine sword is the emperor's eldest grandson, even if the queen wants to hide it. But after all, paper can't hold the fire. Under the special publicity of the dean, the whole empire was in an uproar. Anyone with a little bit of identity knows about it. And when Yi Qinyuan was about to arrive in the empire, the emperor, who had been in retreat for a long time, finally came out. After learning the ins and outs of the whole thing, come to the main hall, looked at Yi Tianxu who was kneeling below, frowned. So you're here for a little more life-saving capital. It was only at the time of the original blood test, misappropriated the blood of other people's god-emperor bloodlines. Actually, you're not. Yi Tianxu looked at Yi Qingsong above. He knew that he couldn't hide it. Although since ancient times, the emperor's family has been the most ruthless. But he still wants to fool the past with the emotional card. Red-eyed nodded. But I'm really the emperor. Bloodline. Please also forgive me for my confusion back then. I'm just here to protect myself. Feng Wani on the side. Although I also think that Yi Tianxu is a waste. But compared to Yi Qinyuan, Yi Tianxu, a minion, is always a little easier to control. After all, Yi Qinyuan's ability. Feng Wani. I have already heard what those people who surrounded and suppressed Yi Qinyuan before. Then he helped His Majesty with the gunslinger on the side. Although Excalibur is important, but grandchildren are also important. That Yi Qinyuan. After all, I don't know where the wild boy came from. How can there be a grandchild who has hurt us since childhood? Know the roots. Even if Yi Qinyuan is really the illegitimate son of the prince, even if he gets Excalibur, Your Majesty cannot favor one over the other. It hurts Sewer's heart. Feng Wani said, also squeezed out 2 tears from the corners of his eyes very appropriately. Listening to Feng Wani's words, Yi Qingsong glanced at Yi Tianxu. I saw that his eyes were red. It's really unsettling. The anger in my heart couldn't help but be reduced a little. After all these years, Yi Tianxu's performance is also good. In addition, he has always recognized that there is only one grandson. So compared to Yi Qinyuan, who has never met, he still favors Yi Tianxu more. As the saying goes, nearest the king, nearest the gallows. Feng Wani is Yi Qingsong's pillow person. See each other like this. I also understood that he was moved by his own words. Then continue to add oil and vinegar. And I heard that Yi Qinyuan worshipped the people from the Xianmin side as teachers. It is said that the people of Xianmin are pure-hearted and have few desires. But the concubine felt that as long as she didn't ascend to the immortal, there are a few more who are truly desireless. Let's be careful. This is a trap on the side of the fairy gate. After all, the identity of the emperor's eldest grandson is not ordinary. Outside for decades without returning. Where is it better than knowing the roots in front of you? Feng Wani said. Then kicked Yi Tianxu. Motioned for him to hurry up and make a statement. Yi Tianxu was kicked a little hard by Feng Wani, but quickly reacted. Came over, and immediately said yes. Grandpa Huang's grandson is for the empire. May the liver and brain apprentice die. Yi Qingsong will also have a headache. I was thinking about it as a family matter. Why is it involved in the fairy gate? Now it's a problem. Just when Yi Qinsong had a headache, someone hurried into the temple. And to your majesty, the dragon boat of the important minister has returned. Yi Qinsong raised his eyes. Then get up and go. Excalibur descends. Even if it's me, it is also to be treated with courtesy. As he spoke, he walked out of the hall. Feng Wanyi and Yi Tianxu saw this. They looked at each other quietly. Although there is no bottom on the next development, but he could only force the uneasiness in his heart to follow. Soon a huge African. It landed on the square in front of the main hall. Yi Qinyuan's pet Yuan Chu was also not online. I know that the master loves to join in the fun. In order not to let the master miss the upcoming good show, in the Zi, a small window was specially opened for Yuan Chu. In this way, no matter what Yi Qinyuan sees, it can also be seen at the beginning of the Yuan dynasty in the Zi. Although the group of people who stand in front of Africa, at the beginning of the Yuan, almost no one knew him. But the good thing is, Yi Tianxu, who was standing in front, was still quite conspicuous. Immediately, the word was transmitted to Xiao Yuan. You have to be careful. Your presence will endanger the interests of many people. They're not going to give up. Hear Yuan Chu's words. Yi Qinyuan couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Smiled and said, "Thank you, master. I'll be careful." Then he rubbed his wrist. I am very sure of the next development. Let's see how he tore that impostor. In another place inside the Zi, though, Little White Dragon, they don't have the same good treatment as Yuan Chu. But Li Lao is also the instrument spirit of the Zi. Then they can see what they saw at the beginning of the Yuan. It works too. And the Little White Dragon. Naturally, it will not be so quiet to watch. Turn your head to it. Excalibur on the side rubbed it and said secretly, even if the royal family is present, everyone besieges the great devil. He doesn't have to be afraid. Excalibur heard this. Curiously asked, why? The Little White Dragon smiled lewdly at first. Then he cleverly said the physique in the same place. If you can't defeat the big devil, you can hide in space. Used his actions to coerce Xiao Chu to double cultivate with him. Just once. His cultivation can improve by leaps and bounds. When the time comes, he wants to leave. Who can stop it? Excalibur heard the words and spoke majestically. This kind of physique he had only heard of. Never seen it yet. I didn't expect it to be. But even if the owner gets the power of the chick store, I may not have been able to beat so many people. Who knew that the Little White Dragon didn't care? Put your hands on your hips. Very arrogantly said, what is so difficult about this? If it doesn't work once, it will be twice. If you can't do it twice, it's 10 times. Besides, once the big devil and the little Chu start to take a double break, each time, both of them can improve. That's a lot faster than practicing hard by yourself. The great devil must be eager to do that. Excalibur remembered Yi Qinyuan's deep impatience for Yuan Chu. I couldn't help but have a look of approval on my face. I couldn't help but echo and said yes. The host would definitely love to do that. Just the Little White Dragon and the Excalibur. When the discussion is in good faith, they didn't even notice that Elder was already behind them. Listen to their conversation clearly. His face instantly turned ugly. Then he stepped forward without saying a word. One person gave them a brain meltdown first. The Little White Dragon and the Divine Sword were suddenly brainstormed. I'm a little confused. I just wanted to get up and find the Black Hand to settle the score. Klee's angry voice followed. Let the two of them instantly hold their little heads and dare not speak. Are you two itchy skin? Everything in the space. As long as Xiaoya has a thought, he knows it all. Listen to what Elderly said. The Little White Dragon suddenly panicked. I feel like my future is bleak. That's what I'll call the big devil. He also knows. Excalibur is also square. There is no love on the face. Say so about me. In his heart, The majesty of the elders has long since been shattered into slag. Li Lao looked at the two things in front of him, said he didn't want to talk to them anymore. Let them fend for themselves. Outside after going down Africa, Yi Qinyuan looked at the person in front of him, who should be his grandfather. He looked calm. After a junior salute, he swapped out the sword. When Yi Qingsong saw Yi Qinyuan for the first time, it somehow feels familiar. But I can't tell where it's familiar. But I saw that the other party took out the Excalibur. Suppress this doubt. It is only natural to take everyone to bow to Excalibur. After the prostration, and they came together to the main hall. Yi Qingsong looked down. Princes and ministers who came in one after another. As a monarch, what are the minds of the people below? He still knows a little. It's nothing more than which side is good for them. They take sides. And Yi Qinyuan stood in the center of the main hall. Faced the side of that party. The face is calm and calm, facing the beginning of the Yuan and the Zi. Although not on sight. But look at this face. There's also a sense of immersion. I couldn't help but get a little nervous. Obuchi Fuchi. I don't think there's something right. You have to be careful. Those officials don't look at you well. Facing the original concern. Yi Qinyuan is the master of the sound transmission Dao, rest assured. You just have to watch the play. Everything. He's already confident. Now just wait for those key people to arrive. This is the real start of this show. I guess it's almost there. At this time, the princes and ministers were all present. But Yi Qingsong had a headache. Excalibur will recognize this man as the master. That means he must be of royal blood. After all, how could Excalibur lie? You can look down. One is seen from a small age. Behind the other is the support of the Excalibur. This made Yi Qingsong for a while. I don't know what identity to give Yi Qinyuan. After all, the eldest grandson already has Yi Tianqiu. If he gives Yi Qinyuan a hedgehog with no inheritance, will Excalibur agree? Or will Yi Qinyuan agree? However, Yi Qingsong's thoughts was led astray by Yi Tianqiu and Feng Wanyi at the beginning. He hadn't thought about it at all. Yi Tianqiu was not a royal suicide. I really thought that Yi Qinyuan was the illegitimate son of the royal family. Just as Yi Qingsong was about to speak, when you probe Yi Qinyuan's mouth, a worker hurried in from outside the temple. Your Majesty, the heads of the three families of Simogu asked to meet. And these three families, it occupies a large part of the empire. Yi Qingsong naturally didn't dare to slack off. He beckoned. Declare them in. Yi Qingsong didn't expect these three people to come together. He faintly sensed that something was wrong. I always feel like something big is going to happen. Hear the arrival of these three heads of the house. The corners of Yi Qinyuan's mouth, who were standing below, raised slightly. Yi Qingsong felt that something was wrong. Immediately after that, someone came to the store to report. The Tao is enlightened. His Majesty, the head of the Zhang family, asked to see. President of the Alchemist Association. I beg to see and listen to the voices of the workers below. Yi Qingsong had no choice but to let them all in. After all, some people have been promised to be put in before. It is impossible to keep the people who come after you out. And so quickly. There were a lot of people in the main hall. All of them are the heads of the family, power leaders, and influential people within the empire. And the dagger in front. It is the head of the three Simogu families. That one is menacing. The appearance made Yi Qingsong feel bad. I can't help but ask what day it is. Let you all come. The ministers present also looked at each other. And after the crowd had finished their salutes, the head of the Mu family took the lead and stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, the minister came to sue a person this time. Then he raised his head, bluntly said that the Taoist wanted to sue Yi Tianqiu. It means murdering the whole son's life. Before Yi Qingsong could say anything, the head of the Su family then also stepped forward, Your Majesty. The minister also came to sue Yi Tianqiu. My daughter Su Haiyue was ruined because of his bones. I almost died before. The minister must come to seek justice. What the head of the Su family said, and the head of the Mu family. The ministers present may not know. But then everyone who stepped forward to take care of the family immediately understood why the other party came. After all, the Gu family's previous incident was rumored. And Yi Qingsong was concealed because of Feng Wani. The details are not known. I only know that Yi Tianxiu and Gu Qingli have divorced. Then I heard the head of the Gu family say angrily, "Your Majesty, Yi Tianxiu is not of the God-Emperor bloodline. Fear of being exposed. That's why I want to quit my daughter's family." But he also wanted to make a good name. So he was humiliated in every way at the marriage banquet. Framed my daughter. Now my daughter is bedridden because of him. I'm afraid my life will be short. Your Majesty must give me an account of this. The head of the Gu family said in the end. The anger in my heart suddenly couldn't be suppressed. Because in the trio, except for Su Haiyue, it's Gu Qingke who is the worst. And the head of the Gu family cherishes his daughter very much. So he was also the most agitated and angry one in the crowd. One by one, the evidence of the crime came down. Yi Qingsong looked at Yi Tianxiu with some surprise. It seems that there is some disbelief. But he didn't think the three heads of the family were joking with him. Especially the angry appearance of the Gu family master. Facing Yi Qingsong's gaze. Yi Tianxiu, this will? I didn't dare to look up anymore. As the saying goes, it's really when I did it. How majestic and majestic it is. But if you pursue it, it's really going to be so embarrassing and embarrassing. Even the queen almost tore the handkerchief in her hand. Gritted his teeth. He looked at the three people who were complaining in front of him. These old things don't come sooner or later. It's just at this time. They are in collusion with Yi Qinyun. I have to say, Feng Wani's guess was quite accurate. Seeing that Yi Tianxiu didn't speak for a long time. A weak heart. This is what the three heads of the house said. The credibility is inevitably a little higher. Although the matter of the Gu family is already well known. But after all, solemn. Little is known about the two families. Yi Qingsong frowned slightly. Some couldn't believe it. After all, someone often whispered it in his ear. How good Yi Tianxiu is. Why did you provoke so much public anger at once? I asked if there was any misunderstanding in this. Hearing this, the head of the Gu family sneered. Whether it was a misunderstanding. There were so many people there that day. I can see it clearly when I go. As soon as this remark came out, the people in the main hall immediately began to talk. Seeing that things are about to get bigger, Feng Wani hurriedly said with a smile, one more hand in the future. After all, today is a good day for Excalibur to return. It is also a big day for the first aunt of the royal family to recognize their ancestors and return to their ancestors. Yi Qinyuan saw that the other party wanted to use himself to excuse himself. How could he be satisfied? Then he chuckled. It's not necessary to take a step forward. In that thing, I'm also a victim. Yi Tianxiu not only harmed others, and you want to blame me for everything. So I'm going to get justice too. At this time, Yi Qingsong's face had completely sunk. Angrily asked Yi Tianxiu what was going on. Yi Qingsong roared. Made Yi Tianxiu, who was originally like a quail, tremble. Hurriedly stepped forward. Without saying a word, he knelt down first. Then they started selling. It's miserable, Grandpa Huang is wronged. That time, Sewer was framed. However, what Yi Tianxiu didn't know was the scene where he and Li Xuanji were talking. It has already been learned by the Gu family master through soul searching. Seeing that the other party was still quibbling, the Gu family's eyes couldn't help but flash a trace of murderous intent. Sneered and framed. The man who killed my daughter. I've searched for souls. He was commanded by you. The words of the Gu family master made Yi Tianxiu chuckle in his heart. But he soon calmed down. After all, it is easy to get demi-med by forcibly searching for souls. Besides, when he arrived, Li Xuanji was already cold. Immediately, a dead pig looked like he was not afraid of boiling water. Now that man is dead. It's not your side of the story. Seeing that Yi Tianxiu was still arguing with strong words, the head of the Su family on the side immediately took out a plain shadow bead, snorted coldly, and asked for evidence. Yes, I happen to have it here. After injecting a trace of spiritual power, don't wait for others to stop it. Su Yingzhu then recorded the original footage. It began to play out. That clarity. As long as everyone present is not blind, you can see it all clearly. And there's more to it than just pictures. Even the voice came out clearly. As the picture flows frame by frame, and the people saw this, suddenly they all understood. It was Yi Tianxiu who harmed Gu Qingbari. Also wants to blame Yi Qinyuan, just to be able to take away his blood, without being held accountable by the first college. What a calculation. But the part about Yi Qinyuan's identity was erased later. Yi Qinyuan saw that everyone's faces were very exciting, and he walked over. The hand is covered with a shadow bead. The part that was erased was restored. So everyone saw the most wonderful part. In the phantom of the shadow bead that shook a little, I only heard Yi Tianxiu grit his teeth and say, "If it weren't for the use of your blood, I don't have to be like that now. Let me tell you the truth. You are the eldest grandson of the emperor, and I'm just the child of your father's guard. But it doesn't matter. After today, I am truly a royal bloodline. No one can question me anymore." One word stirred up 1,000 waves. Feng Wanyi didn't expect Yi Tianxiu to be so stupid. The eyes that stared at Yi Tianxiu almost poke a hole in him. Yi Tianxiu didn't expect Yi Qinyuan to be so insidious. Everything was recorded with plain shadow beads. His face suddenly turned pale. He stood up sharply, said loudly, "Grandpa Huang, this man is framing me. They must have found someone to transform into me. Fabricated this paragraph. I know. They and Yi Qinyuan must be together. The purpose of this is to squeeze me out. In this way, Yi Qinyuan is the only heir to the throne." The head of the Su family, who took out the suing bead, didn't expect this either. But after weighing the pros and cons, he glanced at the remaining 2 family heads, immediately firmed up his position. The head of the Mu family glanced at Yi Qinyuan, then take a step forward, sneered at Yi Tianxiu, who was still resisting stubbornly. "Since you feel like we're framing you, it is better to have a blood test on the spot. Let all see. How much have you been hiding from everyone?" Yi Qinsong, who was sitting above, looked down. This will be his own succession of revelations. I was a little confused. Obviously at the beginning. It's just that a few major families are making trouble for Yi Tianxiu. How did it become all at once? Even Yi Tianxiu's identity is fake. And for the proposal of the head of the Mu family, Yi Qinsong's face was very ugly. After all, a blood test in public is detrimental to the royal family's face. But the other party has Su Yingzhu. If there is ironclad evidence, how can you stop it? Come to think of this. Yi Qinsong then looked at Yi Qinyuan below. All of this is obviously led by Yi Qinyuan. If it's all true, that can only mean that Yi Tianxiu is dead. Yugu couldn't figure it out, but Yi Qinsong couldn't figure it out. The other party is just a teenager. What the hell is capable of? Can let the heads of so many big families help him come forward. Seeing that the situation on the scene has reached an impasse, Feng Wanyi understood. As long as Yi Qinsong is still on their side, then there's room for everything. Then he stepped forward and shook the other person's hand. "Conspiracy theories say, Your Majesty. You must believe sewer. You see how long this Yi Qinyuan has only been in the empire, and recovered so many people for his use. How could this be a means of a teenager? It must have been premeditated by the people on the other side of the immortal gate." And Feng Wanyi's words successfully said to Yi Qinsong's heart. A teenager after all. No matter how much you pay tribute to one, nor can it be in a short period of time, has accumulated such a huge network. At this point, Yi Qinsong was more cautious. And yet this will. The princely ministers below have been divided into 2 groups. It started to make a fuss. The party that was not bought by Yi Tianxu thinks, since the emperor's eldest grandson has a clear conscience, then take a blood test in public. Prove innocence. And Yi Tianxu has been in business for many years. Naturally, he also has his own supporters in the court. Then he retorted nonsense. Your Highness is the body of 10,000 gold. How can you suffer such a disgrace? As he spoke, he then looked at Yi Qingsong above. Start putting pressure on it. Your Majesty, don't listen to this man's words. The ministers believed that His Royal Highness the eldest grandson was innocent. Someone must be disguised as His Highness. These words were deliberately fabricated. As soon as the head of the Su family heard this, he was not happy. After all, Su Yingzhu took it out by herself. These people are clearly referring to Sang scolding Huai and talking about himself. Snorted coldly, it was just a blood test. When the time comes, everything will come out. Why are you so nervous? It's not that there is a ghost in my heart. The words of the Su family master were like a fuse. The two parties quarreled directly. All of a sudden, the scene became noisy. This made Yi Qingsong, who was already irritable. In the next second, he slapped directly on the dragon chair. Frowned, and his tone was full of dissatisfaction. Enough is enough of the noise in the hall. What kind of system? There was a slight pressure in Yi Qingsong's voice. With a terrible oppressive force hit. Everyone present was instantly silent. Bow your head and dare not speak. At this time, Feng Wani remained silent. He glanced at Yi Tianxu. Yi Tianxu immediately meeting. Knelt in front of Yi Qingsong again. Whether it's tone or demeanor, make yourself look like a victim. Grandpa Huang, please believe in your grandson. Someone must have wanted to monopolize the name of the emperor's heir. I want to get rid of my grandson. Although son heir is not of the god-emperor bloodline, but they are genuine royal descendants. If not, Yi Tianxu said. Then he glanced behind him. Then he said in a firm tone, son heir. Willing to have a blood test on the spot. Listen to Yi Tianxu say this. The head of the Gu family, who came back to his senses, immediately said that it was good. Then take a blood test. If there is no problem, I'll kowtow to you on the spot to make amends. Although the price is a bit big. But the head of the Gu family wanted to pull Yi Tianxu off the horse. It's not a day or two. At this time, there is such a good opportunity to fall into the well. How could he let it go? And he also believes. The Sumu family would never let Su Yingzhu go for no reason. The content is absolutely true. Yi Tianxu's identity is 80% fake. After Yi Tianxu sold miserably, then he got up and turned his head to look at the Gu family master behind him. Said angrily, I agreed to have my blood tested in public. But please also ask the Gu family master to remember what he said. Kowtow and apologize. Yi Qinyuan, seeing Yi Tianxu's fearless look, I can't help but feel a little strange. The other party does not seem to be afraid of blood tests. Could it be that there is some kind of backhand? And the reason why Yi Tianxu is so arrogant, no reason for fear. It's because he has already exchanged blood with Yi Wenqi. What flows through his body now is the true royal blood. Although it is not the blood of the god emperor, but it was enough for him to turn the tables. And in today's chaotic situation, as long as you can verify the right body, no one can question his identity from now on. Otherwise, it is questioning and contempt for the royal family. After Yi Tianxu promised a blood test, it seems to have been prepared for a long time. Soon, someone came to the main hall with the top of the blood dragon. Yi Tianxu turned his head to look at Yi Qingsong above. Huang Yiyi in order to prove the identity of his grandson. I also asked Huang Yiyi to give his grandson a drop of blood. This is the end of the story. Yi Qingsong narrowed his eyes. And no more. Fingers moved. A wound appeared between his fingers in an instant. A drop of blood then hung over the top of the blood dragon below. The top of the dragon above was instantly activated. It glows reddish. and Yi Tianxiu before squeezing out the blood, turning his head to look at the heads of the family behind him. A confident face. It was almost provocative to several heads of the family. Do you want to check this blood dragon top? Lest you later accuse me of cheating. Yi Tianxiu's aggressive attitude. Let everyone look at me. I'll look at you. For a moment, no one dared to touch him. So confident. It makes others feel hesitant. After all, if the other party is not fake, it's too tight at this point. Won't it be remembered miserably in the future? Seeing that everyone looked hesitant, Yi Tianxiu's eyes couldn't help but flash a sneer. Then those long, narrow, and handsome eyes looked at Yi Qinyuan. Put yourself in the victim's shoes. First condemn the other party's conscience. Yi Qinyuan, I have no grievances or enmity with you. But you have joined forces with others to frame me. Do you think you're going to squeeze me out? I'm not going to let you get it. Yi Tianxiu finished speaking. Then he bit his finger. Then squeeze out a drop of blood and fly towards the top of the blood dragon. In full view, everyone present suddenly held their breath. Then I saw 2 drops of blood collide together. It glowed a dazzling red. As the 2 drops of blood continued to divide and merge, the mood of most of the people present. It's like a roller coaster. However, the end result is that some people are happy and some are worried. The 2 drops of blood eventually fused together. And this result, let the 3 heads of the family who originally swore to be, suddenly showed a look of disbelief. Now do you have any questions? It's like winning a battle. There was a mocking sneer on the corner of Yi Tianxiu's mouth. When his eyes stared at Yi Qinyuan, he was even more with a deep chill. Then he began to clear his name. Meantime, shape Yi Qinyuan into a position for the emperor's eldest grandson. Unscrupulous villain. Yi Qinyuan, we are born in a pair. You can't just because you're bastard. For the throne of the emperor's eldest grandson. That's how they framed me. Insult me. You've also made up these fabricated things. Said that I hurt Gu Qingbari. It's just to frame you. I'd love to have your blood. But such a vicious thing as exchanging blood. I would never do it. And the Gu family helped me a lot. Again, I am a grateful person. How could it be possible to harm Gu Qingbari? How long do you want to wrong me? Originally, the 3 masters who came to Xingshi to ask about their sins heard Yi Tianxiu say this. Suddenly he stopped talking. Although Yi Tianxiu is at fault. But what they just did, it can also be regarded as contempt for imperial power. But they don't speak. But it does not mean that Yi Tianxiu is a villain at this time. We'll let them go. Turning his head and looking at the Gu family master aggressively. Uncle Gu, I and Qingli have had a marriage contract since childhood. I really like barley. Originally, I was going to do it if you wanted to. I still agreed to marry her. But now you are helping others to bully me. The power of my emperor's eldest grandson. Strictness is better than violation. You better kneel down and kowtow. Yi Tianxiu's voice just fell, made cold sweat appear on the foreheads of many people present. And the 3 heads of the family looked at Yi Qinyuan in unison. I want to see how he fights back. If Yi Qinyuan has no whole cards. Well today, Yi Tianxiu completely sat firmly on the position of the emperor's eldest grandson, not to mention. They sinned against him to death. Even if the situation on the scene is dramatically reversed. But there was no panic on Yi Qinyuan's face. I saw the 3 heads of the house staring at me. Think about it for a moment. Then he smiled. Just in the shadow bead. Who is that 13 or 14-year-old boy? The 3 heads of the family heard this. I was stunned. However, the Gu family master immediately reacted. Hurriedly said that it was Yi Wanqi, the grandson of the 3rd prince. Yi Qinyuan listened. There was an expression on his face that was indeed the case. Shaking his head, he looked at Yi Tianxiu's suddenly tense face. The words are amazing. You didn't get my blood in the end. Sucked Yi Wanqi's blood dry. I guess he hasn't been seen for a long time. Heard Yi Qinyuan say this. The crowd whispered. It seems that I haven't seen Yi Wanqi for a long time. Yi Tianxu's face also changed suddenly. I didn't expect it to come to this point. The other party can still make trouble. Looked at Yi Qinyuan nervously. What do you mean? That's my cousin. You mean I killed him? Yi Qinyuan smiled undeniably, looking at the many princes and nobles in the main hall. Asked where the third prince was. One age. An old man who looks much older than Yi Qin. He stood there with a gloomy face. The beard trembled slightly. Although judging by his position, he was on Yi Tianxu's side. But when I heard about my own grandson, when he was drained alive by the other party, the hand that the third prince put behind him, still unconsciously clenched. Anger also begins. I trembled unconsciously, raised his head and glanced at Feng Wanyi above. Okay, no wonder I asked Feng Wanyi where my grandson was last time. He didn't know what he was pushing. It turned out that it had been drained by them a long time ago. Otherwise, the building of the sky on weekdays. How could it be fused with the emperor's blood? Facing the angry gaze of the third prince, Feng Wanyi quietly passed a glance. Only they can understand the meaning. After all, we've come this far. If the third prince said it truthfully, not only lost a grandson for nothing, even the efforts he put into Yi Tianxu before, it will also go down the drain. But Feng Wanyi felt that the third prince should be a smart person, know how to choose. After all, as long as you help Yi Tianxu survive this catastrophe, not only can it sit firmly on the throne of the emperor's eldest grandson, even their previous sacrifices. After Yi Tianxu succeeds to the throne, he will be able to pay off. Therefore, Feng Wanyi was not afraid that the three princes would take their stage. Sure enough, the three princes waited up. In the end, he decided to continue to stand on Yi Tianxu's side. Then he stepped forward and said that the king of Daobin was. Look at the old man in front of him. Yi Qinyun asked with a smile, dare to ask the third prince. Where is your grandson now? Yi Qinyuan's voice just fell. Everyone looked at the three princes. After all his next words. But it decided Yi Tianxu's life and death. In the sight of so many people, the old face of the third prince trembled. But since he decided to stand on Yi Tianxu's side, then he said with a clear conscience that Sun Heir was stubborn. Recently, he was cultivated at home by this king. What doesn't die? Do not fight among you with your kings and grandchildren. The words of the three princes made Yi Tianxu breathe a long sigh of relief. It also caught everyone present by surprise. At this time, whether it is the right time and place, or people, now it's all on their side. Yi Tianxu wants to see it. Let's see what else Yi Qinyuan can do. Thinking of this, Yi Tianxu couldn't help it. Putting on a lofty posture, said Yi Qinyuan. What else do you have to say? At this time, Li Lao, who was watching the play in the Zi, the fiery temper came up in an instant, pointed at Yi Tianxu's arrogant face, said indignantly, let this Yi Tianxu and the third prince Yanxue, their blood fusion will definitely be higher than that of the emperor. Elderly said. Immediately, he was going out to help Yi Qinyuan uphold justice. Looked at the irritable little appearance of Li Lao. The little white dragon directly poured a basin of cold water on it. It's useless at this time. The emperor would never agree to let Yi Tianxu take a blood test again. Otherwise, the royal family is too easy to bully. And heaven is outside. Just when Yi Tianxu felt that he had a chance to win, I only heard Yi Qinyuan chuckle. Then he said calmly, I heard that I want to use the exchange blood forbidden technique. Before the procedure is administered, we'll take a very poisonous medicine to reduce the failure rate. The properties of that medicine melt into the bloodstream. Just soak the seeds of the vine leaves and give it a try, and they will be able to test it out. Yi Qinyuan's words. Let the three masters who originally did not have expectations. In an instant, a glimmer of hope arose. Yi Tianxu didn't expect it. Yi Qinyuan would have known so much. But at this time he, already not ready, Give Yi Qinyuan any chance to turn the tables again. Bite the bullet and say that you're enough. Yi Qinyuan again and again. Again. Who has the time to find you seeds at this time? Yi Tianqiu looked like a stubble. In front of Yi Qinyuan is the tiger of Jiji Fox. Then he shrugged his shoulders. This herb is not hard to find. There must be one in the palace medicine garden. I can't delay you much. Yi Qinyuan's words made Yi Tianqiu panic. Then he looked at Yi Qinsong above like a distressed person. Grandpa, you have to call the shots for your grandson. And Yi Qinsong, who watched a big show, faced with Yi Tianqiu's plea for help. At this point, his patience had reached a critical point. Regardless of whether Yi Tianqiu is the emperor's heir or not, it doesn't matter if he's harmful or not. At this time, he was still the emperor's eldest grandson. But he was made difficult again and again. Those people simply don't take the royal seriously. Thinking of this, Yi Qinsong was then ready to speak. Rejected Yi Qinyuan's proposal. And this time, a soft and cute voice suddenly came. Actually, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. Then the petite figure in place, and appeared in front of everyone. And the appearance of the original place made Yi Qinyuan, who had always been calm, change his face slightly. I feel like I'm going to be after this is over. Let's talk to Mr. Li. After all, except for yourself, there is only Li Lao. I was able to release Master from the Zi. Feng Wani felt bad when she saw Yuan Chu. It's not just because of this little girl who suddenly appeared. I can't see through him. It was even more of a sense of threat that Yi Qinyuan gave him. It's just too strong. Not only is it strong, and there's also the ring space. Thinking of this, Feng Wani hurriedly said, Who are you? Above the court. You little doll will be wild again. Someone dragged him down. Yi Qinyuan saw this. Immediately stood in front of Yuan Chu. Reach out and protect it behind you. Although Yuan Chu's appearance surprised him, but he wouldn't let anyone hurt him. See the old woman above. So much malice towards yourself. Heaven is not afraid of the earth. Yuan Chu naturally won't get used to him. Immediately rewarded him with a grimace. Then he said that the act of exchanging blood is a great forbidden technique. However, there is a forbidden spell in the forbidden arts. It can make all kinds of forbidden people in an instant. The situation is reversed. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of it. For the forbidden spellbreaker. Several families too. Slightly heard. After all, there are many forbidden techniques in the world. But most are unheard of. But the forbidden spell is famous. Because he is specially used to break the forbidden arts. Just take the person as a drop of blood before planting the tree. Then the tree of purity that falls on him will disappear. The whole person will be able to return to the way it was before the tree was planted. It is the only way to save people in the pure tree. For this sudden appearance of the game-breaking method, several heads of the family were also happy. However, the problem before them is not ordinarily large. After all, if Yi Tianqiu really changed blood, then who will have the blood before he exchanged blood? Even if I did, I wouldn't hand it over. Faced with this unsolvable problem, the newly raised hopes of several family heads suddenly dissipated. Yi Qingsong, who was sitting above, also frowned. When I feel like I'm messing around. I saw Yuan Chu smile slightly. That smile was like a little devil in Yi Tianqiu's eyes. Then he waved his hand. A drop of crimson blood appeared on his fingertips. Happened. This drop in my hand is Yi Tianqiu's previous blood. I'll use this blood to break the mirror for him. If he hadn't exchanged blood, naturally, there will be no change in one's own blood. But if he had changed his blood, Yuan Zhu said. Then he wrapped the drop of blood with spiritual power. With a wave of the little hand, the blood bead flew straight towards Yi Tianqiu. Feng Wani saw this. Suddenly, his face changed drastically. He didn't dare to bet. In case that drop of blood is real, that's what they do. Then it's all in vain. Hurriedly ordered the secret guard beside him to intercept it. However, How could Yi Qinyuan let his opinion go? Operation Dark Guard. Immediately flew forward. A palm slap out. Directly stopped the secret guard. Seeing that the other party is coming to grab the place. This will also move. One flew forward. Yang Zhuang is going to protect that drop of blood. The Dark Guard saw this. Hurriedly wanted to step forward to stop it. Was killed by Yi Qinyuan. The ground is stopped when no one is available at this time. Feng Wan had already gritted her teeth. Then he couldn't help but step down to grab the blood bead in person. Looking at Yuan Chu approaching the blood beads. Wave your hand for the next second. The roots of the tree are as thin as a poisonous needle of cow's hair. Shoot a volley towards the primordial volley. Facing the poison needle that is close at hand, Yuan Chu hurriedly dodged and barely avoided it. And at the moment when Yuan Chu dodged, Feng Wani had already snatched the blood bead. Looked at Yuan Chu standing in front of him. The expression on her face seemed to be talking about a little girl. You still want to fight me? You're still tender. Then push your fingertips. In front of Yuan Chu, he pinched the blood beads and scattered them. See the blood beads destroyed. Yi Tianxiu, who was hiding behind, suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. However, it was Yi Tianxiu and Feng Wani. When you feel that the other party is not in a rut, Yuan Chu moved another dodge. Came behind Yi Tianxiu. Yi Tianxiu was taken aback. I hurriedly wanted to resist. But Yuan Chu has one hand. Directly pressed on the other person's shoulder. Suppress it to the death. The little devil-like smile on his face resurfaced. Hey, you've been fooled. That drop of blood was fake. In fact, this is the real blood bead in my hand. After speaking, Yuan Chu's stupid hand on Yi Tianxiu's shoulder suddenly became stronger. The blood beads implied in the palm of his hand carried the power of breaking the mirror. Directly melted into Yi Tianxiu's body. The next second, Yi Tianxiu said in his mouth. A shocking scream broke out directly. A red light suddenly erupted from his body. The red circle that swirled out of the body almost cut Yuan Chu. But, fortunately, Yuan Chu jumped to Yi Qinyuan's side in time. Yi Qinyuan saw this. Immediately the offensive was also closed. With Yuan Chu, he stepped back again. For a while, the red light centered on Yi Tianxiu's body. It spreads into the store. It is accompanied by a kind of magic circle that smells of blood. Meanwhile, every skin and flesh on Yi Tianxiu's body, it's all like earthworms, twisted and reassembled. And the pain it produces made Yi Tianxiu let out an even more tragic scream. But Yi Tianxiu looks like this now, and no one felt distressed. Instead, he felt that he was to blame. Because it's now very clear. Yi Tianxiu was subjected, or rather, he was forbidden by himself. This bloody fact in front of you, so that Yi Qinsong couldn't believe it anymore. Yi Tianxiu is gone. His face suddenly became gloomy as ink. The murderous intent and anger in his eyes were intertwined with madness. The hand at his side also clenched suddenly. Gradually, the red light dissipated. Yi Tianxiu fell to the ground weakly. There was no blood on his face. Gasping for air. Looking at Yi Tianxiu, he looked half dead. Yi Qingsong's eyes were indifferent. At this point, he just wanted to know. Yi Tianxiu before planting trees. Is it royal blood? Then he raised his hand and swiped. Yi Tianxiu made a cut in his arm. A drop of blood floated out. Take out another drop of your own blood. Flung back into the blood dragon crown. However, the end result. Everyone present could see it clearly. Not at all. And this result. Let Yi Qingsong, who was furious at this time. I couldn't suppress the anger in my heart anymore. See what happened. Feng Wani just wanted to step forward and kill people. Yi Qinsong slapped him with a backhand and slapped him to the ground. After all, what the other party did before. I see it all in my eyes. It's going to be reckless. If she's a fool, she can't do it. Call you bitch. How much more do you have to hide from me? With Yi Qinsong's roar, the whole basilica, there was a deathly silence for a moment. Feng Wani, who fell to the ground, closed her eyes angrily. All these years of hard work have been in vain. I felt uncomfortable as if I had been stabbed. But Feng Wani understood. Now is not the time to be decadent. Endure pain and unwillingness. His eyes are like those of a poisonous snake. Glanced at Yi Qinyuan and Yuan Chu. Then he pleaded with Yi Qingsong, Your Majesty. The concubine is wronged. Su'er is a concubine who has seen the eldest child since she was a child. The concubine thought that the girl was trying to harm him. That's why I shot at him. But the concubine never expected it. Su'er is not a royal bloodline. Feng Wani's words came out. Yi Tianxiu, who fell to the ground half dead. And not stupid. Naturally, I could hear that this dead woman wanted to abandon Baoshuai. Yi Tianxiu's eyes were instantly distorted and terrifying. I didn't expect to meet Yi Qinyuan once after many deployments. And they were all overthrown. And this I will also be abandoned as an outcast. Thinking of this, Yi Tianxiu was very unwilling in his heart. He didn't want to die yet. Then he hurriedly got up from the ground. Wants to sell Feng Wani to get a chance for himself. Since you are unkind, then don't blame me for being unjust. Seeing Yi Tianxiu's move, Feng Wani almost guessed it. What's going on in the mind of this dog minion? A silent look of menace. And he threw it away. This made Yi Tianxiu, who originally wanted to pull Feng Wani into the water. The words he wanted to say suddenly stuck in his throat. The messy mind seems to be a lot clearer. At this point, you can do whatever you do. In the end, they all died. If you follow Feng Wani by yourself, maybe he'd do it for some other reason. Save your life. So Feng Wani can't lose power. Thinking of this, Yi Tianxiu instantly understood. What to do next? Immediately changed his face. Tremblingly, he crawled in front of Yi Qinsong. Kneeled down. Grandpa Huang, please. Please spare the imperial grandmother. Then look up. The tears on his face also flowed. A pair of pear blossoms looked at Yi Qinsong with rain. It's all my fault. He didn't know it. He just hurts me. It's that I'm too scared. I'm afraid that Grandpa Huang won't want Sun Heir if he knows the truth. That's why I want to change Yi Chengyuan's blood. Yi Tianxiu said. Then he slammed his head on the ground 3 times in a row. Wait for Yi Tianxiu to raise his head again. The forehead had become a bloody blur. But Yi Tianxiu didn't care. Looked at Yi Qingsong with affection. Grandpa Huang, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness for being wrong again and again. But I really already regard you as my own grandfather in my heart. If you're still angry, execute me. Don't wrong the imperial grandmother for this. Feng Wani didn't expect Yi Tianxiu to be so upright. At this time, he definitely can't let go of this opportunity. Then he cried and begged Your Majesty. The concubine didn't know anything. Your Majesty, please be clear. Yuan Chu, who was watching the play on the sidelines. I thought that Yi Tianxiu and the queen would eat dog. I didn't expect Yi Tianxiu to be so insidious. It's all bearable. But what made Yuan Chu more curious was what the emperor would say. After all, if Feng Wani knew Yi Tianxiu's life experience, this can be regarded as a shocking conspiracy. Ruo Feng Wani didn't know. This matter is just Yi Tianxiu's greed. However, in the previous crit 1x1, Yi Qingsong, there will be no more these 2 goods in front of this. It's easy to deviate. In Chen's face, so that others can't see it at all. Did he believe what the 2 things in front of him said? Feng Wani saw this. My heart suddenly fell to the bottom. But at this time, someone outside the door suddenly came to report to His Majesty. The Feng family asked to see him. This sentence surprised everyone present. But Feng Wani's heart was suddenly full of hope. After all, the Feng family must have come for Feng Wani. So I want to delay Feng Wani today. If there are no accidents, it's almost impossible anymore. Although Yi Qinsong also understood the purpose of the Feng family's trip, But since the founding queen is a member of the Feng family, therefore, Yi Qinsong still has some respect for the Feng family. Then he waved his hand to let him in. And there weren't many people from the Feng family who came before. There are only 3. The woman who was the leader. It is Feng Xiaoru, the mother of Feng Wani. Looking at her daughter who was kneeling on the ground in embarrassment, Feng Xiaoru just glanced at it coldly and didn't bother. The look in his eyes was high to the extreme. The end is the extreme of arrogance. Although the mother didn't pay attention to herself, but Feng Wani understood that the other party came to save herself. I still couldn't help but shout mother. Although Yuan Chu did not know the meaning of the Feng family in the empire, but seeing the reaction of the people around him, I still can't help but get nervous. This is probably going to be another moth. Worriedly pulled Yi Qinyuan's sleeve. Spread the word to Abichibiki. It seems that the Comer is not good. Facing Yuan Chu's worries, Yi Qinyuan said that Master Dao did not have to worry. These people are nothing to fear. You just have to be responsible for watching the show. Yi Qinyuan said. He squeezed his original little hand as if soothingly. It was soft and soft. Yi Qinyuan couldn't help but feel uneasy. Compared to Yi Qinyuan, the rest of the people present were not so relaxed. Some people rejoice, some people are sad. After all, the appearance of the Feng family. It's like giving Feng Wani here. It's like a shot in the arm. Feng Xiaoru first saluted Yi Qinsong. See, Your Majesty. Then he asked knowingly, I don't know. His Majesty made Wani kneel in front of everyone. But he did something wrong. Because of the preferential treatment of the emperor and his own superior strength, when the Feng family was facing the emperor. Although the etiquette is very thorough, but there was not much respect in the tone. Yi Qinsong was already very angry in his anger. Listen to Feng Xiaoru say this. I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. It's all on point. It is not yet known what is happening, but because of the empire, the emperors of all dynasties have given preferential treatment to the Feng family. In addition, although the Feng family is arrogant, they do not cause trouble. So Yi Qinsong was not angry with him. Instead, he said coldly that Mrs. Feng is here. Will not know. However, what Feng Xiaoru said afterwards. Let Yi Qinsong refresh his opinion of the Feng family. Feng Xiaoru didn't deny it after hearing this. Then he saluted again. In front of everyone, there was a hint of threat in his tone. Your Majesty is discerning. Wani is wrong today. But the old body believed that he definitely didn't mean to. Someone deceived him. So before His Majesty finds out the truth, please also ask Your Majesty to save some face for Wani. It should be regarded as saving some face for the Feng family. Feng Xiaoru's words were straightforward. It makes many people's expressions a little weird. Yi Qinsong was also directly laughed at. If it's a general thing, he may really not bother with Feng Jia. But Feng Jia has not been praised too high over the years. Forgot about duty. He was asking him. Yi Qinsong didn't speak yet. Yi Qinyuan, who was on the side, suddenly sneered. The Feng family is really a big face. I don't know where this face comes from. Yi Qinyuan's voice was heard. Feng Xiaoru frowned slightly, turning his head and looking Yi Qinyuan up and down. I thought it was a reckless man in the mountains. Nothing. But Yi Qinyuan is both demeanor and bearing. I can't find the slightest mistake. But you can still pick bones out of the eggs. What's more, the other party didn't send the handle to the eyes. Feng Xiaoru then mocked. It was really arrogant and rude. Some of them flew to the branches at one time. I forgot what I was meant to be. Excalibur is handed over to you. It's really a pearl covered in dust. Yuan Shao was not happy when she heard it. Is this old woman blind? What's wrong with Xiao Yuanyuan? Look at the puffy master. Yi Qinyuan hurriedly held him down. Then he smiled and said that I was arrogant because I had the capital. I've got what it takes. Standing here can also be recognized by Excalibur. So I have the capital of hubris. It's like some people, leaning on the ancestral Mingyin. He forgot who he was. Hearing Yi Qinyuan's words, Feng Xiaoru's face suddenly turned the color of pig liver. Pointing at Yi Qinyuan, he scolded sharply, "What do you mean? Are you humiliating the founding queen? It's just that I got the Excalibur. It's just bullying." And behind it, the faces of the two Feng family members were also very ugly, facing Feng Xiaoru's fierce eyes. Yi Qinyuan didn't look at it at all, and then in front of everyone, generously admitted, "Right? I'm just a bully. What's the matter, aren't you? At least I still have Excalibur to lean on. Why are you? Is your surname more noble than your national surname?" Feng Xiaoru heard this. I almost couldn't hold my mouth. It's time to refute Yi Qinyuan. But the good thing is that he hasn't been stupid yet. Know that once you say the surname of Feng, words that are nobler than the national surname, then don't talk about saving people today. Maybe you'll have to get into it. So in anger, turned his head to look at Yi Qinsong, who was watching the play on the side. "Your Majesty, you are at your disposal." Such an insult to the Feng family. For Yi Qinyuan's performance, Yi Qinsong praised it in her heart. "Yi Qinyuan, this kid said it well. It's all about my heart. Why didn't I see that the Feng family was so confused before? It's all come to this. I still want to save face." Thinking of this, Yi Qinsong then frowned, asked unceremoniously, "Insulting you? Do you mean to believe in the faith of the nation?" Feng Xiaoru heard this. His face changed, hurriedly said that the old body did not mean this. "Yes, however." Yi Qinsong this time. "I don't want to listen to Feng Xiaoru anymore." Interrupted him directly. "If that's not what it means. Yi Qinyuan is the eldest grandson of the emperor. He said a few words from you. Can't you listen yet?" Yi Qinsong said. Then he turned and walked towards the dragon chair above. Yi Qinsong's words came out. In an instant, a word stirred up 1,000 waves. This is a direct recognition that Yi Qinyuan is the eldest grandson of the emperor. This will still be Feng Wani, who is still kneeling on the ground. The heart hit rock bottom again. Anxiety instantly welled up in my heart. Fear made my whole body tremble uncontrollably. Yi Qinsong had already sat on the dragon chair at this time. And after the previous one, it's going to be a lot more sensible. Before, he almost wanted to believe that Feng Wani didn't know. But the Feng family in front of him was obviously wild. He decided to investigate the matter thoroughly. Glancing at the crowd below, then a cold voice was announced. Put Yi Tianxiu on death row for strict interrogation. Escorted Feng Wani to the cold palace for interrogation, and went to the Three Princes' mansion to pick up Yi Wanqi into the palace. If you can't find it, Yi Qinsong didn't say much in the end, just sneered a few times. Yi Qinsong's voice just fell. Then a guard stepped forward, pressed Yi Tianxiu and Feng Wani down. No matter how the two begged for mercy, Yi Qinsong didn't even drop a look. In the end, the two were dragged down together. However, compared to the stone statue of Feng Wani, Yi Tianxiu is not so peaceful. I heard that I was going to death row and wanted to escape, but in front of the royal forbidden army, his embroidered pillow is not good enough to see. And Feng Xiaoru didn't expect it. This is what happened. I just wanted to step up and say something. Was stopped by Yuan Chu. Seeing that the emperor is so powerful, Yuan Chu was a little worried. Inevitably, it got better. Then he taunted, "You better stop talking. Otherwise, wait for Hui Liani to catch it together." Feng Xiaoru is on fire in his heart. Nowhere else can I find it. But Yi Qinyuan has just been canonized as the emperor's eldest grandson. Plus there is a sword behind him. Naturally, he didn't dare to do anything to him. But it will be cynical in the face of this. Yuan Chu Feng Xiaoru then raised his hand. "I want to give Yuan Chu a little color to taste. Where did the wild girl come from? Dared to insult the Feng family. Suffer death, and how could Yuan Chu let him get his wish? Not to mention, this old woman dared to scold her little grievance just now. This will count old and new grudges together." Then jumped straight up. He bit down the other hand. Feng Xiaoru immediately screamed. I didn't expect to take his cultivation. The other party can still hurt him. And Yi Qinyuan's face changed suddenly when he saw this scene. Hurriedly stepped forward and forced Yuan Chu to let go. Angry, said Master. Loosen the mouth and wait for the beginning of the yuan. After the loosening of the mouth, Yi Qinyuan gently wiped the corners of Yuan Chu's mouth. Some disgusted said, how can you bite him? Give it a quick wipe. He's dirty to death. Listen to Yi Qinyuan say this. Yuan Chu first used a cleaning technique on himself. Then he said dang angrily. Didn't think much of it. I just want to take a bite to relieve my hatred. Hear a conversation between the two. Feng Xiaoru was almost angry. Those who don't care about the image will be scolded. And Yi Qingsong, who was sitting above. Unexpectedly, the Feng family was not only ambitious. Don't take her seriously now. Suddenly I was furious and turned against you. The main hall still dared to commit murder. I'm still there. Was yelled at by Yi Qingsong. Feng Xiaoru was taken aback in an instant. He took a step back coldly. If it weren't for the support of the two Feng family members behind him, I guess this will have fallen to the ground, and the brain that was originally carried away by anger. At this time, I also sobered up a lot. Thinking about what I had just done, Feng Xiaoru's face was black and white. But when he saw the evil smile that flashed on Yuan Chu's face, Feng Xiaoru instantly understood something. Tremblingly, he stretched out his finger and pointed at Yuan Chu. Is you? You must have used illusion on me. Seeing the other party pointing at himself like this, Yuan Chu hurriedly hid behind Yi Qinyuan in fear. Xiao Yuanyuan, this woman is so scary. I just accidentally drank his blood. I don't want to become insane. Looked at Yuan Chu's small appearance. Yi Qinyuan smiled dotingly. He really can't do anything about him. But in order not to be seen by others, Master's cute little appearance, Yi Qinyuan then hugged Yuan Chu, silenced the voice in their ears, said viciously, naughty ghost, I'll clean you up in the evening. After speaking, Yi Qinyuan didn't give Yuan Chu any chance to resist. In the next second, Yuan Chu was thrown back into the Zi again. He also specially told the elders, no matter how coquettish the master is, he is cute. He is not allowed to be let out again. After settling Yuan Chu, Yi Qinyuan stared at Feng Xiaoru with an unkind expression. The eyes of several people seemed to be looking at the jumping clown. Murder in the temple. Dare to do it, but dare not admit it. Your Excellency has really subverted my perception of the Yin family. Hide. In the end, it is cultivation or cheekiness that cultivates. Feng Xiaoru didn't expect Yi Qinyuan to speak so poisonously. Was so angry that he could barely speak. I didn't catch my breath. I almost rolled my eyes and fainted. Although now Feng Xiaoru was so angry that he couldn't speak for a while. But the two Feng family members behind him are not decorations. One of the middle-aged men then roared in anger. If it weren't for your people, the provocation would have been the first. How can we do it? The Feng family is the mother family after the founding of the country. The Feng family should swear to defend the dignity of the family to the death. As soon as these words came out, everyone present looked at the eyes of these three people, even more disdainful. And Yi Qinyuan sneered. Fingertips flipped suddenly. Excalibur then appeared, fiercely inserted in front of the Feng family. Excalibur appeared. That quaint sword intent exploded in an instant. Let everyone present feel the meaning. There is an indescribable fear. And the three members of the Feng family who faced the Excalibur. It feels like falling into an ice cellar to see each other. Sent Excalibur out. Feng Xiaoru in his heart. Suddenly a bad premonition welled up. But still pretend to be calm. What do you mean? Yi Qinyuan curled his lips slightly when he heard this. Slender fingers on the hilt of the sword. The slightly raised phoenix eyes were a little evil. I'm just trying to help you understand yourself. Yi Qinyuan's words made Feng Xiaoru feel inexplicably empty. But I think of my own background. Even if the other party is the emperor's eldest grandson, he has no foundation. What do you have to be afraid of? Thinking of this, Feng Xiaoru immediately became angry again. So you're trying to declare war on the Millennium Clan. You are the crown prince. But he has no respect for the mother of the nation. People like you don't deserve respect. Feng Xiaoru's words shocked everyone present. The topic has reached this point. It seems that it can't be kind. Meanwhile, someone secretly went to describe Yi Qinsong's face, found His Majesty, who had always been very tolerant of the Feng family. At this time, he sat on the dragon throne with a calm face. It seems that he is going to watch a play. And this sounds very serious to others. But he directly made Yi Qinyuan laugh. He looked at Feng Xiaoru with a sneer. There was a deep mockery in his eyes. It seems that you want to teach me a lesson after the founding of the country. Yi Qinyuan looked like he didn't care. Really let other people around. I can't help but admire his courage. But Yi Qinyuan then broke out of the melon. It made everyone present stunned. As everyone knows, the Feng family is because of a founding queen born on the ancestor. Therefore, it has been treated with courtesy by successive monarchs. Unfortunately, though, Excalibur told me, the founding queen is not inherited by the Feng family at all. It is better to be happy alone than to be happy in all. Yi Qinyuan didn't hide it afterwards. Before everyone could react. Go on. After the founding of the country, Feng Yutian believed in it, but because of his poor roots. So it's not taken seriously. The branch of the Feng family where he is located is even more in him. He was driven away by his family before he was born. Or after Feng Yutian became the mother of the country. The Feng family came to cling to it. The mother of the nation is merciful for her mother's sake, promised to give the Feng family a decent job. But he refused to go to the Feng family tree all his life. So he is not from the Feng family. But what I didn't expect was, after the death of the monarch and the mother of the country, the Feng family actually began to call themselves the mother family of the country. And take advantage of it. Develop yourself into a film and television master who is detached from the world. I don't admire this method. What I admire is your shamelessness. Yi Qinyuan's words made the entire hall really audible. No one present could have imagined it. The current identity and status of the Feng family. That's how it came about. And Feng Xiaoru and the three obviously know the inside story. Listen to Yi Qinyuan. His face suddenly turned pale. Feng Xiaoru this time. I can't take care of anything anymore. Hurriedly screamed angrily and stopped. Don't talk nonsense here. I'm a Feng family. I'm here. However, before Feng Xiaoru finished quibbling, Yi Qinyuan interrupted him, continuing his words, sneered and said that your Feng family is a person who deceives the world and steals fame. If it weren't for Excalibur, something would have happened. Your Feng family doesn't know how long you want to deceive the world. Do you want me to ask the Excalibur sword spirit to come out? Say it yourself. How did the Feng family come to the door to climb back then? Hearing this, Feng Xiaoru sat directly on the ground. There is no more strength to defend itself, because it's all about it. There was only one voice in my heart, and the Feng family was finished. And the people in the main hall, what Yi Qinyuan said, there will also be no doubts, because they don't question Excalibur. It is also because of the authority of Excalibur itself. And Excalibur was the only living witness at the beginning. How could his words be wrong? This is also why Yi Qinyuan is the reason for being absent-minded in the first place. Because no matter what happens, Yi Qinyuan actually has the chance to win. But the master will come out to help himself. This is still a decision that moved Yi Qinyuan very much. Tonight I want a kiss to say anything. Looked at the Feng family's incomprehensible look. Yi Qinsong, who sat on the dragon chair and watched the play for most of the day, suddenly laughed under his breath. The whole body is extremely comfortable. It's like drinking a bowl of ice dew in the summer. And Yi Qinyuan's performance also made Yi Qinsong extremely satisfied. He found himself wanting to accept this sun air. It's so easy. Because he's so good. It's too calming too. previously because of Feng Wani, had that disgrace to Yi Qinyuan. It also disappeared in an instant. Then Chen Sheng said that when he passed on my will, the family deceives the world and steals the name. Selfish. The title of the maison is now abolished. Demoted from a super first-class family to a low-class family. Same-day execution. After Yi Qingsong finished speaking, Long Zhua, the worker, who has always been invisible, stepped forward. Nuo Feng Zhaoru. I didn't expect the emperor to be so fast. Is about to abolish their family's title. And when he thought that this would go on, return to the family by yourself. It's definitely a luxury to even die. The next second under this huge blow, the whole person can't bear it anymore. Eyes rolled, foaming at the mouth, straight and fainted. After dealing with the affairs of the Feng family, Yi Qingsong then looked down. Several heads of the family who came to redress their grievances promised about the fact that someone pretended to be the emperor's eldest grandson. I'll get to the bottom of it. Look at a few family Haihan. I will definitely give you an explanation. There will also be corresponding compensation. Several heads of the family didn't expect it either. Today, I just came to bring down Yi Tianxiu. I didn't expect to be able to pull out so much. But now that the emperor has made a promise, several heads of the house, then he also showed the respect of a courtier. Thank you, your majesty. Then Yi Qingsong looked at Yi Qinyuan. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Before today, although Yi Qinyuan got the divine sword, but he still felt that the other party would recognize his ancestors so quickly. Somewhat sloppy. But now, Yi Qinyuan has already succeeded with his own actions. Conquered Yi Qingsong. Yi Qingsong immediately announced directly, Feng Yi Qinyuan is the 17th eldest grandson of the imperial family. Not only can you learn how to govern the country by your side, if you are in retreat by yourself, then the empire will be supervised by Yi Qinyuan. And if something happens to me one day, then the entire empire belongs to Yi Qinyuan. Yi Qingsong's last words. Although there are some joke ingredients, but it still shocked everyone present. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinyuan had just been canonized as the emperor's eldest grandson. To be able to gain such great glory, as long as he does not die, then the empire is definitely his. Yi Qingsong unabashedly valued Yi Qinyuan. Let everyone look at each other. I feel that the future will be very difficult. Just as everyone thinks. I'm afraid I'll have to be a man with my tail between my legs in the future. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinyuan refused directly. Your Majesty, I am willing to recognize my ancestors and return to my ancestors. However, I am not willing to accept the duties of the emperor's eldest grandson. And your upbringing. Yi Qinyuan's operation. It made everyone gasp suddenly. I don't know what kind of medicine he sells in his gourd. Since he doesn't want to be responsible, I don't want to be cultivated either. So what is the purpose of his deployment today? Yi Qingsong also asked with a frown. What's wrong with you? Originally, he thought that Yi Qinyuan was because of the relationship on the side of the immortal gate. However, Yi Qinyuan then shook his head. Your Majesty built it as a high wall. In the prime of life, there is no need for an assistant at all. And I want to go to the Dream Glacier, looking for a father. And this is obviously a very frank sentence. But it made Yi Qingsong's chest blocked. Not long since, he had also been frantically looking for his son. But in the end, there were countless casualties. He had to give up. When Yi Tianxiu pretended to be the emperor's eldest grandson before, begging for tricks under his knees all year round, he never offered to look for his father. Only Yi Qinyuan is worthy of being his son's true bloodline. Even if you've never met, he's still going to look for him. However, the Xinming Glacier is too dangerous. Even if it's your current cultivation, it is estimated that there is no news. What's more, it's Yi Qinyuan. Thinking of this, Yi Qingsong immediately relented. Shaking your head, it's good that you can have this heart, but it's too dangerous. You don't have to risk your life. who knew that Yi Qinyuan had made up his mind. He arched his hand and said the grace of his parents. Courage is called to heaven. Although my father did not raise me, but as a son, I can't tolerate the uncertainty of his life and death alone. And there was not even a single person who saved him. Yi Qinsong saw this. Although there is uneasiness in the heart, but at the same time, it is inevitable that there will be a bit of pride. This is what a royal descendant should look like. And not like those flies and dogs. Every day you know the intrigues. But Yi Qinsong didn't plan to let Yi Qinyuan go like this. Chun-Yin was a moment later. Then he got up and said that this matter will be discussed later. At least we'll have to wait until after the Excalibur baptism ceremony. And I'm glad you're back. I want the whole world to celebrate. Declare your identity to the rest of the world. That's all I have to say. What else could Yi Qinyuan say? Then he nodded. Honor and disgrace are not shocked. Then Yi Qinsong took advantage of the excitement and gave a few more orders. Only then did he announce his retreat from the dynasty. After the next dynasty, Yi Qinsong did not go directly to death row. Instead, he went back to the dormitory first. After all, he was worried about it. In the end, there is no such thing as being served late. It's a matter of dignity. Had to deal with it. And Yi Qinyuan is under the leadership of a worker. Lived in one of the most elegant and expensive palaces in the palace. Although the palace of the Wan dynasty, there are hundreds of workers up and down. But Yi Qinyuan didn't need these light bulbs to disturb his solitude with his master. After leaving a general manager and sent all the others away, the steward who remained saw this, knew that Yi Qinyuan didn't like to be disturbed. Then he went out very brightly. And as soon as he went out, Yuan then jumped out of the zi, after rolling around the bed twice excitedly. Then he sat up. A pair of big eyes looked at Yi Qinyuan brightly. Xiao Yuan, you are amazing. That Feng Zhaoru is afraid that he will not be able to think of death. The consequences of running to pretend to be forced. The whole family was ruined by him. His expression. I want to give you a thumbs up just thinking about it. However, this will be excited Yuan Chu did not notice. The three who usually like to join in the fun. The silence was unusually unusual. Lying down without any sense of crisis. With an indignant face on his face, he continued. If it hadn't been for Uncle Excalibur telling me, I didn't even know that the Feng family was so shameless. It is said that their ancestors often bullied the mother of the country. Later, when the mother of the country died, she jumped out and stained it. It's just a lack of tidying. See yourself say so much. Not even a single one to cheer on. Only then did Yuan Chu realize that the room was so quiet. Then he sat up and looked at Yi Qinyuan. I saw Yi Qinyuan chuckling and looking at him. Those doting eyes made Yuan's inexplicable little face red. The whole person suddenly tensed. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then he pretended to be calm. Laughing, he asked the little white dragon Li Lao, what about them? They weren't there either. Yi Qinyuan smiled slightly. Then he leaned over and pressed on. They were all sleepy. Rest in the zi. And the three people who were not people in the zi were speechless for a while. Now is the time to get high. How is it possible to sleep? And they don't need to sleep. Looking at Yi Qinyuan in this book. Serious nonsense. Yuanju didn't know what to say. Do you seem to be so easy to deceive? The reasons are so perfunctory. But now is not the time to think about that. Looked at this rebel as if he was going to eat himself. Yuan Chu felt that it was better for him to slip away quickly. Let's go outside and visit the palace. It looks very delicate. Yuan Chu said, quietly moved to the side of the bed. The next second, I want to run away. However, Yuan Chu was cautious. How could Yi Qinyuan not guess it? Then he stretched out his hand. The kitten, who wanted to run away, give a handful to grab. Then he dragged him underneath him. Master, you are not well behaved. I said I'm going to clean you up. Yuan Chu heard this. Immediately panicked. looking up at Yi Qinyuan. A look of accusation. Xiao Yuanzi, you have changed. You weren't like this before. You clearly said that you would only teach at night. But it's still afternoon. Yi Qinyuan listened. Raise your eyebrows slightly. So you want to be taught by me at night. Although the little blushing fluttered, but Yuan Chu was still very serious. A serious expression. No, I'm master. I don't want to be taught a lesson by you. Yuan Chu looked so serious and refuted. It's so cute. Yi Qinyuan couldn't help it. Stopped Yuan Chui into his arms. Hold him tight. Blurted out the truth. Master will soon be no longer master. Yuan Chu listened to it. I was immediately stunned. What you have to judge out of the division. Yi Qinyuan heard this. Bow your head and kiss Yuan Chu lightly on the center of his eyebrows. I just want you to give me a more intimate identity. Yuan Chu was so frightened that his face was numb. You're all my close disciples. Not intimate yet. Yi Qinyuan heard this. Then he picked up Yuan Chu's face, chuckled and said, I want to close the door with you. Yuan Chu didn't think there was anything at first glance. When I think about it, I blush. It's scary to talk like this every day. Yuan Chu who knows the truth. I felt that my legs were weak. It's not easy for him to be a master. Just racked his brains at the beginning of the Yuan. When I wanted to slip out of Yi Qinyuan's arms. Suddenly, a paper kite appeared in the window. Yuan Chu saw this. Hurriedly took it. And Yi Qinyuan was also a little curious. Because that's the communication suit of the fairy gate. Originally, he was planning to wait for this side to end. Took the master back to Xianmin to ask for it. Unexpectedly, the news came from there first. Yuan Chu then injected a trace of spiritual power into it. Listened to the wind in tacit understanding. The hesitant voice came from inside the paper kite. Xiao Chuha, your grandfather is out of customs. He said he wanted to see you. Yi Qinyuan heard this, frowning slightly. Master's grandfather. It was because the master's mother died, and the heartbroken tacit diva. The other party is out of the customs at this time. It is definitely not good news for Yi Qinyuan. After all, he originally planned to go directly to the head of the house to propose marriage. This will be a bit tougher though, but he believed he would be able to convince the head of the family in the end. But now, this matter suddenly became much more difficult. And Yuan Chu heard the news of his grandfather's exit from the customs. Tilted his head. I was puzzled. Obviously in the last life. The old man died directly during the retreat. He had never seen him. And now because of his change, the old man has also changed. Faced with this never met. I want to see my grandfather. Yuan Chu was a little entangled. I want to see the old man. It's strange to look at Yuan Chu's tangled little appearance. Yi Qinyuan opened his mouth and asked, doesn't the master want to see his grandfather? Yuan Chu heard this. Holding the little face, he said a little melancholy. It's not my elder after all. He's out of the gates. It's normal for me to go and see him. Although I don't know what my grandfather thinks of him. But in the end, it is his body's relatives. Yuan Chu felt that he still had to take the initiative. It seems to feel the uneasiness of Yuan Chu. Yi Qinyuan reached out and rubbed Yuan Chu's little head. Comforting master. Do not worry. I believe you. Grandpa will definitely like you. Was comforted by Yi Qinyuan like this. Yuan Chu thought about it too. Smirked. Narcissistically said yes. I'm so cute. Absolutely. See Yuan Chu no matter what happens. Can quickly open up. Yi Qinyuan was really a little envious. A thought of the end of the diva. It may become the biggest obstacle to his quest. Yi Qinyuan couldn't let go of it in his heart. Immediately stretched out his hand and stopped Yuan Chu into his arms. Master, do you want to be with me all the time? Hearing Yi Qinyuan suddenly ask, Yuan Chu didn't know what to say. He wanted to be with him until the end of his life. See Yuan Chu hesitated. Yi Qinyuan thought it was because of the star-counting spell. So the master can't perceive his feelings for him. Come to think of this, Yi Qinyuan immediately lowered his head and kissed Yuan Chu's lips. Seeing the other person does not exclude themselves. Yi Qinyuan couldn't help but be a little curious. I can't think of it as despicable. Master did not reject him at this time. Does it mean that once the spell is unbroken, he'll fall in love with him? After being eaten some tofu again. At the beginning of the Yuan dynasty, a paper kite was returned. He said he would leave for home in 2 days. Because there is one last bit of trifles left on the empire's side. And this will chill the uterus. Feng Wanyi saw that Yi Qinsong was coming, hurriedly rushed forward with tears in his eyes. Then he pounced and knelt down directly. His Majesty's concubine knew that it was wrong. If you want to be punished, you will be punished by one concubine. Don't be angry with the Feng family. But fortunately, Feng Wanyi took off her phoenix robe this time. Wearing a plain white dress, he knelt in front of Yi Qinsong. At this time, she is. It's not as arrogant as before. Completely honest. And panic. After all, I'm locked up here. I can't receive any messages from the outside. I don't know what happened after she was taken away. Yi Qinsong has. There is no anger at the Feng family. Feng Wanyi hoped in her heart that it was best not at this time. Because as long as the Feng family doesn't fall, he still has a chance to get out. But if something happens to the Feng family, then he's all done. Yi Qinsong was condescending. Looked at Feng Wanyi, who was kneeling in front of her. This time, he had already confirmed Yuanqi's death. He really didn't understand. For so many years, he thinks that Dai Feng Wanyi is not thin. Because of him, it doesn't matter what the Feng family or the Zhao family want. He always tried to open the door as wide as possible. Why did the other party betray him? At this time, there were only the two of them in the huge cold palace. The cold palace is not shabby. It's just Shaosu. Yi Qinsong's voice echoed in the empty palace. With a bit of a chill. Feng Wanyi will give you one last chance. You'd better think before answering. Feng Wanyi's heart suddenly chuckled. Then he looked up at her. Yi Qinsong then bent down and pinched Feng Wanyi's chin. A pair of tiger eyes stared at him. Does Yuanqi's death have anything to do with you? Did you instigate Yi Tianqiu? Drained Yuanqi's blood? You'd better think before answering. Because the third brother formation has already been arrested. Feng Wanyi's spirit was awe-inspiring. I didn't know how to open my mouth for a while. However, Yi Qinsong did not wait for Feng Wanyi to answer. Then he asked, when did you start? Knows that Yi Tianqiu is not the real imperial heir. And for what purpose did he help him hide it? Yi Qinsong didn't ask anything. You really don't know. Is Yi Tianqiu fake? And so on. Just wanted Feng Wanyi to think that he knew everything. Meanwhile, two figures were quietly peeping out of the window. It was Yuan Chu and Yi Qinyuan. After all, they are similar to Yi Qinsong's cultivation. In addition, Yi Qinsong came here alone. So I'm not afraid of a dark spot to find them. And with the temperament of the beginning of the Yuan. And how could you miss this good show? See this. Yuan Chu was a little puzzled and sent a message to Yi Qinyuan. Asked Xiao Yuan. Why did the emperor come to ask Feng Wanyi this kind of stupid question? He made it clear that he had bad intentions. Just think about it. Yi Qinyuan paused. Then he reached out and hugged Yuan Chu into his arms. Look into his eyes. Perhaps it was because the emperor had affection for him. After all, they have been husband and wife for more than 10 years. Was stared at like this by Yi Qinyuan. Yuan Chu's face turned red again. He nodded as if he didn't understand. However, just when the pink bubbles were about to bubble, Yuan Chu heard Feng Wanyi cry suddenly. He cried and said, Your Majesty, do you remember when I first pursued you? Such exciting news. Let Yuan Chu instantly lift his spirits. Immediately jumped out of Yi Qinyuan's arms. I listened intently. Ho ho ho. It's really exciting. Yi Qinsong heard it. The expression was cold and hard. Silent. And Feng Wanyi saw this. Crawled slowly towards him. finally kneeling by his golden boots, pulling at the hem of his clothes. Although his majesty is 500 years older than me, but when I saw your majesty, for his majesty's een has nothing to fall out of. Later, he will seduce you so shamelessly. Your majesty, do you really want to doubt my sincerity? Hearing this, Yi Qingsong's expression was a little moved. However, he still glared at Feng Wani fiercely. Although only that slight change, but Feng Wani still noticed. Then he continued to cry and said, yes, I know that Yi Tianxiu is fake, but there is no conspiracy in this. Just because Yi Tianxiu is the child I raised from childhood to adulthood, I can't bear to expose him. It's just that I didn't expect him to change, become wolf ambition. He wanted to keep his identity from being discovered, learn the technique of exchange transfusion, and hide it from me. By the time I found out, it was too late. But on one side are children who grow up from childhood. On one side are the children of the third brother's family. Plus Yi Wenqi is dead. I definitely won't let Yi Tianxiu lose his life for him again. That's why he colluded with the third brother to confess. Give him some compensation. Let him keep it a secret. And the reason why Feng Wani dared to say this. It's sure that the old fox of the third prince will say so. They didn't discuss it, though. But the best way to get away with the crime is to make the big things small. He believed that the third prince knew how to do it. Feng Wani finished speaking. Then he looked at Yi Qingsong sadly and lovingly. Yi Qingsong actually found out. There is nothing to refute yourself. I can't help but feel a little messed up in my head. And Feng Wani knows. That's when it's time to take advantage of the victory. Suddenly knelt up and hugged Yi Qingsong's waist. Your Majesty, we have been married for more than 10 years. You have to trust me. Although my surname is Feng, but I still have the Zhao family in my bones. Except for you, who else can be my dependents? And you forgot. I wasn't even afraid to die for you. What more do you think I can put on you? Do you want to be a female emperor? And Yi Qingsong seemed to be a little moved by Feng Wani's words. But he didn't show it. Just stretched out his hand and pushed Feng Wani away. Chen Dao, you'd better pray that what you say is true. If you're lying to me, After saying that, Yi Qingsong turned around and left.